Join us every Friday for encouragement, freedom, and biblical truth. Grab your coffee or grab your tea. It's going to be a good one.
So hey everyone, Kim here, and I'm solo tonight. I'm a little nervous solo, but I have time to say hello. So some people I've already said hello to. I want to say hello to my mods first of all. I see that Carly's here and Michael is here. Of course, my amazing Sandra, of which, not right now, but we're going to bring her on so you guys can meet her. She's actually at a camping thing in the woods, but not legit camping, guys. Okay, there's cabins, not tents. All right, so let's see. Can I pull a Zach here and see who's here tonight? We've got Jules, so thank you so much. I am, believe me, coveting prayers here tonight, so thank you very much. We have Nancy, so hello sister, thank you so much. We've got Rebecca's in the house. Thank you. Kristen, hello. Just Vicky, hello, sweet sister. Sylvia, how are you doing? Love, good to see you. Did I already hit Rebecca, I guess? I don't know. I don't even remember. Who else do we have? Miss Carly, love you, girl. That is my heart right there. We have become fast friends. So who else? Looks like, oh, Heather, hello, sister, hello, good to see you. I'm glad that you have dropped in. That is wonderful. Kim K, hello. Nice to see everyone. We've got Classic Rock Chick, hello. Have I missed anyone so far, Sandra? I think I'm scrolling pretty fast. And we're really not on a time limit. I'm trying to work out my nerves here because this is going to be a deep one. Nancy, hello. My sweet sister Tanya, hello. We've got Katie, hello. Barbara, good to see you. Mr. Michael, hello. Suzanne, Tiffany, I think Cindy, hello sister, so glad you can join here tonight. Timothy, hello, good to see you, brother. It was nice seeing you briefly last night on Pete's Discord. We've got Miss Annie P, hello. Chris, hello. Sir Pierce the Veil, hello, good to see you as well. Evelyn, in Christ alone. I'm going to go a little faster here. We've got Mama Ro, hello. Grandma Marty, thank you. Dale, hello, good to see you as well. Jojo, by his grace, how are you doing, Jojo? Lynette, hello, sweet sister, I'm so glad you joined. Bonita, hello, so glad you are here. Kelly, hello. We got Maria, hello. Calabella? Do you think I'm saying that right, Sandra? Okay. In Christ alone, I think I hit you. I don't know if I hit you or not. Only Jesus saves. Absolutely. Boy, Mom, what's up? How are you doing, girl? Rosie's in the house. We've got Sydney and Vanessa. Hello. Any clue, Sandra, on that one? Badia? I don't know. So there we go. Okay, good deal. All right, we've got some other people, I think. Oh, we got Deborah. Okay, so anyone else who's going to join after Deborah, well, that's, I don't know what to say. So before I bring my quick guest on, I want to say, guys, thank you so much. It's going to be a challenging night. I have an ear infection, I have a tooth problem, and my Achilles tendon is hurting. So clearly, the devil does not want me to talk. But before I get started, I need a thumbs up. Sandra and I may or may not sing tonight. We were trying to adjust music. So a thumbs up. Is my volume too soft? Is it too loud? I had to put it back to the original. So give me a thumbs up if I sound good. That would be great. On Rumble, we have MS Cooks. So she says she can't hear me on Rumble. So it's a little soft here. All right, so testing 1, 2, testing. Let me do this. I'm going to adjust something and tell me, does that sound better? Thumbs up, thumbs up. So volume too low. How was that? A little better? Thumbs up? Or still too low? Okay, volume is still too low. Okay, still too low? That's crazy. I got my gain. Testing 1. Let me know. Thumbs up. Still too low? Sandra? Thumbs up, or I can't see your, so thumbs up, so sound is good, okay? So Lynette says no change, same low. I don't know if I get right on it. Ugh, I got a little puffball in my mouth though. Not really sure how that's gonna work. Okay, I couldn't hear you on YouTube either. So, are you sure you got the volume on? Whatchamacallit, on Rumble? You got the little microphone pushed? Sometimes you got to push that. I'm going back to Rumble here. So, Sandra, I don't know if you want to open Rumble, and I can hear you just fine with my volume all the way up. That is crazy. And my volume literally is all the way up. Okay, let me see something. Yeah. And that doesn't change anything, right, Sandra? Can you still hear me? Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I have my volume all the way up, as high as it can go. I have no idea. And I do notice, too, that when I have a guest on, it is kind of low. But I don't want to turn my gain. My gain is as high as it can be. So Sandra's gave me a thumbs up that it was good. So I don't know, is that better? Testing 1, testing 1. I have no idea. So Sandra, my mic bar is right in the way. Let me just bring you on, girl. So everyone say hello to Sandra. Your mic is muted, girl.
Oops, sorry about that. Hi, everyone.
So everyone, this is Sandra. So I'm so glad that she's here. So is my mic really that low?
Right now, your mic is like blasting in my...
It's blasting in your ear.
Yeah. Very loud on my end.
And now they're saying it's up too loud. Okay, testing 1, testing. How was that?
Better, it's coming down.
Testing. 1, 2. How's that?
That's better.
So is that good? Is that a sweet spot right there? Let me turn this gain. How's that? Sweet spot? Loud and echo. Perfect now. Perfect. Better. Sandra, echo. I don't hear us.
Yes. You hear an
Okay.
echo on my end?
I don't hear Sandra echoing.
Oh, I'm echoing. They're saying maybe because where I'm at.
It could be. We're working out all the glitches here tonight, huh? That's crazy. Okay, so thumbs up. It looks like we're good. Okay, so
Sorry,
Sandra,
guys, yes.
you're echoing on everyone,
I'm
but
sorry.
I can't hear your
I'm
echo.
I'm in a remote area, so.
She's in the woods. She's remote. All right, so Sandra, do you want me to introduce this week's mug? Do you want to set us up for that?
Sure.
All right.
Hang on.
All righty. So this week's mug, I purchased it just for this episode. So throughout the duration, if you guys can let me know how the sound is, how everything's working, that would be great, because I don't think the enemy wants me to tell my life clip. It's going to be difficult at times. That's why I have like hardly any makeup on. I'm already getting emotional. I've been through this a few times because there's a lot of weighty topics in here, a lot of weighty subjects that I've really never truly expressed out loud. And I think that's why I'm quite nervous. Tonight, my hands are shaking and my hands are cold, which is rarity because I have rosacea. So, so when I bought the mug, I knew that this was meant for this life clip. And that's why I've put it off for 3 years. But this is my beautiful mug that I bought. And it says, she walked with Jesus. That was her game-changing strategy. I also want to preface this by saying that I truly 100% believe in once saved, always saved. So when you hear what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, you may think, how could you, you couldn't have been saved. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was saved. And so anyway, before I get emotional and before I deep dive into this life clip, Sandra, is there anything you would like to say to our wonderful family?
Well, Kim's become quite a great friend of mine. I hope you guys aren't hearing echo anymore. I tried to move, so hopefully it's better. So yeah, I listened to her. I actually listened. It was J.B. Hickson, I think, and Andy Woods, and it was you were doing some kind of, I can't remember what it was, the topic that you were covering, but I just really loved her podcast, and I'm like, I gotta listen to more of what she has to say. So I just binged like on almost all your everything you had on your podcast.
That's scary.
Like 3 days, I know, right?
You needed an intervention after that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we just got connected, and you know, Kim's become such a amazing friend of mine, and she's a great prayer warrior and encourager. So I really appreciate her and what she's doing for the Lord here. So thank you.
Well, that's not what I wanted you to say. I wanted you to like talk to them. I didn't know. I just, me, I don't like,
and right. And through this, obviously, I've been blessed by the community of, the people that, even though I don't see your faces, just interacting here with everybody. And, it's just been such a blessing to me it's just amazing how God can connect, us as a family that way, even though we have never met. And so thank you to everyone that joins us and is faithful to, support Life Clips every week. So, yeah.
Agree. It's nerve-wracking, isn't it? Like talking to yourself, but yet you're talking to people. It's crazy.
She kind of surprised me. She's like, oh, by the way, you're going to come on tonight.
You're coming on.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wasn't ready for this, but.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, girl. So I'm going to dive in.
It's
I'm
going
going
to be
to
good.
get this started, and the Lord will speak through me. But before I go, I do want to open up in a word of prayer, so you can hang out until then. Father God, I come to you now in the mighty name of Jesus. And Lord, you know that I have put this off for many years, and this has been a tough, challenging time for me. So God, I ask that you would just speak through me tonight, that you would remove myself. And Lord, that this would fall upon ears that need to hear it, that it would be shareable for people who are in carnality. And Lord, it would also reach the lost to let them know that no matter what, Jesus is never too far. So God, take away my nerves. I ask that you heal my ear and my tooth and my tendon. And God, that the enemy would not come in and disrupt. And that you would just give me clarity of mind, and let's connect the dots the way that you want the dots connected. Remove me and put you right in the center. And God, I lift up everybody right now in this feed. In Jesus' name, I ask that you go before them, that you would meet needs. And God, that this would be a night of fellowship, encouragement, and most importantly, Lord, it'll in the end give you the glory. So God, I ask all of this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Sister, I'll see you down below.
All right. Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Oh, wrong button. I'm already hitting buttons wrong. So, hey, Amber. So everyone else who just joined, Amber, thank you so much for tuning in. Val, I just saw your name. All right. So tonight is going to be some photos. Are you guys okay with like me showing pictures of me to kind of keep the story going? That way you can actually know who I am, know my passion for Christ, and know why sometimes I have the temperament that I do. So Sandra, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that from studio. That way I can now see you if I look down. Okay, so let's bring this. I won't be able to see any comments from here while I'm scrolling through photos and stuff. So if Sandra, if someone asks something, you feel free to just put it on the screen while I'm chit-chatting. I'm totally okay with that. And then I'll pause and then see what they're saying. And if anyone new comes in, Sandra's going to greet you along with my mods in the chat. So, and again, if at any point sound goes crazy, let me know. All right. So anyway, this was me. Let me get this right. So I was born Long Island, New York, to an Italian-Mexican father and a German mother. And then this photo, I don't know how old I was there, but I don't know. What do you think, Sandra? How old? Give me your fingers. You're the mama of 4. I feel like I was like 2, 3, 4, something like that. I don't know. I was a youngin' in this one as well. And then this photo here, this would be my cousin's. So I don't know how it looks on your end. So let's go the opposite side, not the one with the dress. So on the opposite side, next to that beautiful 70s Italian style silk pillow, that would be my sister. And then next to her is me. And then you've got my cousin Keith. We're right around the same age. Next to Keith was Joey or Joe. And then Renee, she's in the blue dress. So Renee is about 2 years older than my sister. So relatively, we're all pretty close except for Joe. I think he was maybe 4 years older than my sister. So I'm just showing you guys so you can see, what it was like growing up, who I was. So there's me with lovely Santa with my sister. Before I get to the next photo, I do want to show you guys this photo here. So my mom, when I seen her during Christmas time, she dropped off all these old photos. Clearly, you're going to see the bang theme going on in every single photo. And I don't think I ever saw a barber because none of my bangs are straight. So that's that one. And then we've got this one here. Again, I have no idea, y'all, how old I was in some of these pictures. I'm just going to be like, whatever. This one here, I'm not afraid to embarrass myself. It's what I do. I feel like I look like I'm pooping or farting or something. I look constipated in this photo here. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening with the hairdo either. I scream when I see this photo. I don't know what's happening. That's pretty crazy. This one, I think I was kind of adorable with my little ponytails. I'm mean mugging, though, up here, so that's pretty funny. I do, what's funny is I remember this shirt. I remember the feel of the shirt. And I feel like I just worn this forever and a day. But this was the age, I feel like I was 8 or 9. And this is when I started singing, when my mom started putting me in voice, coming into my own as the performer. This next photo, I think I've shared this before. I feel like I look like John Bon Jovi in this photo. For those who don't know who he is the lead singer of the group Bon Jovi from Sayreville, New Jersey. But I feel like I'm tapping into a very tomboyish look. Now, this photo here, I definitely know is when I was in private school. I feel like it was either 5th or 6th grade. Yeah, so I don't know what's happening to me here. I just feel like it's very tomboyish. Then this picture, you guys still hanging in there? So this picture was Halloween. And I kind of remember this. My mom, every single year, what they would do is we had a basement going down, and she would make it into a haunted house. This is pre-Jesus. And she would make it into a haunted house. And I remember she would cook the spaghetti, and as soon as you open the door, you would have to go through the strings of spaghetti. And then my dad was dead in a coffin. And it's a great thing, back in the day when you can actually let strange people in a stranger's house and have Halloween stuff happening. But that was Halloween. And then this, I feel like maybe I was 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. We had a huge snowstorm in Long Island. This right here I was 14. Clearly it says this was my birthday. So that's me. Now, this was me right, and I'll get into all of that, right after my father had passed away. So I was 14 and my sister was 16. So my life growing up, I came from a household where my mom and dad, they fought very loudly. They were both drinkers, heavy drinkers. And my dad, he would knock over large objects, and my mom would throw stuff. So when salad dressings were actually glass containers. So I remember coming from a very loud, violent home. My dad, again, the drunk, would smoke weed. My mom, would drink and drive with the girl. She was a thief. She would go to stores and steal, and that's how I learned how to be a klepto. I think you remember me telling you those stories. I think, Sandra, I told you. And then when I was younger, I used to steal quite a bit, and I got caught one time, and we're not going to go into all of that. But anyway, so it was a very different household, and that I don't believe that you are a product of your parents, but what you hear in the household does have a lasting effect. It can have a lasting effect. Let me rephrase that. Of how you live your life, what you do, what you say. So I always would caution somebody, watch how we speak and act around our kids, right? They're like sponges. So my mom, she was in Overeaters Anonymous, and I might not have all the dates exactly right, but so she started Overeaters Anonymous. This lady, Mary Ann, which is in this photo here. So Mary Ann, so this photo here, Mary Ann is in that aqua blue shirt next to my mom. My mom, by the way, has the blonde hair all the way back row. And Mary Ann is right next to her, blue shirt, the aqua. And then her husband, Tony, is in that peachy pink salmon. So that's her husband, Tony. And so anyway, my mom met Mary Ann in Overeaters Anonymous. Mary Ann went to the church that I grew up in. And I'll get there. But so during that time, I guess she was trying to invite my mom to church, and no. And then Mary Ann was telling my mom about VBS during the summer. So I'm assuming my mom said yes just to get rid of 2 young girls. So that is when my life that I remember began to change. Something inside of me changed. I had a hunger for the Lord. And I know there's a lot of people who say if you're 5 or 4 or 6, whatever, you have to know like you're a sinner and all this stuff. I kind of tend to disagree, because I know unequivocally when I was 5, and I'm sure you guys have heard this story before, and I hate to be repetitive. So anyway, at this time we're going to VBS, and then I asked my mom and dad if they can drive me to church. Now, we lived in Center Reach, Long Island, Center Reach, New York. The church was in Smithtown, New York. So even back then, I feel like it might have been 30, 40 minutes worth of a trip. And they would take us every Sunday, or my mom would, my dad would, whomever. And I remember my mom at that point had a Chevy Orange Vega, and I hated that car. I even knew at that young age how embarrassed I was. And so anyway, this particular Sunday, I remember just sitting there in Sunday school. And again, I've said this story time and time again. And I was so literally intoxicated by the stories of the Bible, because not that I didn't come from a loving home. I don't want anyone to misconstrue that. Both of my parents loved me. But because of the fighting and the drinking and the loudness, sometimes the warmth of love got lost in the shuffle of the chaotic mess, right? So I just remember hearing these stories of Noah and of David, and Father Abraham had many sons, and right. So I remember singing those songs and signing. We used to sign, Jesus loves me. I think that's me. This I know, something like that. For the Bible tells me so. So I remember signing that song, and I just remember on the back wall there was a picture of white Jesus, and I always used to climb up and pull white Jesus down and sit underneath my teacher in Sunday school and just hold that photo to my heart. And I knew that that man loved me. I knew that he died for me. So I had a recognition. I might have not known that I was like a bad person per se, but I knew that Jesus went to Calvary for me. And I remember I wanted him in my heart, you know. And again, a lot of people say, oh, don't accept Jesus into your heart. Okay. These are the things I think when we become too legalistic, too religious, that we forget just to be simplistic. But I knew as a young girl that Jesus was in my heart. And I kept asking my parents, come to church, come to church, come to church. And according to my mom, the way my mom says it, and again, she could be right. I'm 5. How much can I remember? So I think at that point, the late, great Planet Earth came out. And my mom said it was because of that movie that my dad said, let's go to church with the girls. So before that happened, and I don't know if you guys are listening in the chat or not, but this is a pivotal point. I want to say this story because something is going to happen down the road, and I ask that you guys just bear with me in my emotion tonight. So before my dad went to church, he was a foreman, a carpenter, and again, heavy drinker. And my dad, on the way to go see his mom, she lived out in Farmingville. Not that you guys know where any of these places are. So this is what I want you to hear. He was driving on the road on a rainy night. My dad skidded the truck on some wet leaves, and his truck flipped over down an embankment. I remember my sister and my mom said, hey, your dad was in an accident. Go over to the Strapones. There was our across the street neighbors. And I'm going to go to the hospital and see your dad. We went over to the Strapones. We stayed there. My dad survived. So again, I don't know the window from that accident to late great Planet Earth, but I do know the window when my dad got saved. So if you would allow me, I do want to put my dad on here tonight because my dad is someone very special to me, and I know one day I'm going to see him again. So this is my dad. This is Lenny. This is my family. My cousin Diane, she sent us these pictures. But anyway, you can see, so the guy sitting in front of the big bottle of alcohol, that would be my dad. Oh, now, I don't know what side it's on, but you can see the names Lenny, Joey, my Aunt Dolly, da-da-da-da-da. So Joey and John, those are my uncles. They're twins. So then Lenny is the guy in the white shirt next to the lady in the striped shirt. And anyway, so then that's kind of my family there. Here's my dad again. I'm just going to go through some of these pretty quick. This one, I don't know. I feel like I kind of look like my dad sometimes. And believe it or not, my niece, Dashea, when she makes that facial expression, she definitely looks like my dad. But this was my dad holding my sister. So this is pre-Jesus Lenny. And I bring that up because this was my dad after he came to the Lord. And to me, I just see dark to light. Absolutely. My dad here, he was, a big hunter. And he would just be around worldly people. I mean, that's our family. But yet he would still shine his light for Christ. Just some other photos. That's him and my mom. There you go. There's some more of them there. This right here is when my dad took us. I believe that was one of the Roosevelts. They're somewhere on Long Island, and we went out there. This was our church photo from Smithtown Gospel Tabernacle after my dad, of course, came to the saving knowledge of Christ. And he was very active in the church. He was an usher, and he loved the Lord with all of his heart. And it showed in everything that my dad did. So anyway, my dad got saved, and the house immediately changed. There was no cursing. There was no alcohol. There was nothing, except for my mom's loud mouth, really. I think she was, even to this day, But my dad he didn't engage with her. And my dad was involved in our lives. He was involved in my singing. He was involved in sports that I played. And he was just a totally different man. So life, honestly, seemed really good, right? This is a picture of my sister at her Sweet 16. And before that, this was her 8th grade graduation. Sorry, let me take me off. So 8th grade graduation. This photo here, I just want to give you guys a timeline. This was October of 1986, and it was my sister's Sweet 16. This photo here was November of 1986 on Thanksgiving when we had our family over in a gathering. And it was at this moment that you look back and you're like, wow, just a few short months later, 2 months, my dad would be gone. So January 3rd, 1987, there was a huge snowstorm. It was actually a nor'easter. You can actually Google it. I think the island got 6 to 8 inches, New York City, or maybe even a foot of snow. The state of New York was called out to salt the roads. They never showed up. So, I don't know if you remember what I just said about my dad previously, before Jesus. So my dad was driving to work one morning, and as he was driving, he skidded on a patch of ice. He hit the guardrail, and he was driving one of those Toyotas, like the cargo vans with like the nose was pushed in. And he got out, and he was fine from that. And some gentlemen, a good Samaritan, came by, and they were kind of helping everyone with their, making sure everyone was okay. Because apparently this one patch of ice, it just kept, getting everyone spinning around and da-da-da-da. So my dad's last words to this gentleman were, "Thank God for seatbelts." Now, let me back up 1 second. That previous night, I don't recall what we were watching, but I know that the movie didn't settle right on my dad's spirit. And I remember so vividly his last words to me were, "I'm sorry, Kim. I should have never had us watch that movie. It's not good for a Christian to watch that movie." So just to know my dad's tender heart, I always say I'm rough around the edges, but I do have that tenderness to me as well. But anyway, so he's picking up his tools in the back of his truck, and a lady, a nurse of all people, flying at a high rate of speed on the LIE, the Long Island Expressway. To this day, we're not sure if she hit my dad or if she hit the van, which in turn hit my dad. So there was a lot of emergency activity, cops, firemen, EMTs, all that stuff. And the gentleman who originally went to my dad, he said to one of the EMTs, "Hey, where's that guy who was over there by the van?" And he said, "There's no one by the van." So the guy was like, "No, the guy was there. He was working that silver van." So they were searching and looking, and they finally found my dad's body. He was thrown 25 feet, which I know sounds like a big distance, and back then it seemed like it was just miles away. But it's actually the distance between two telephone poles. And they found him and rushed him to the hospital. So my mom, she told my sister and myself, at this time I'm 14, my sister's 16, "Your dad's been in an accident. I'm heading to the hospital. The pastor will be over here shortly. You girls stay at the house." So I don't know how long that time period went. The pastor came to the house. They didn't say anything. They really didn't talk about my dad. And then I just kept saying, "Oh, don't worry, Daddy's coming home. Daddy's coming home." My sister, I remember her being extremely quiet, just kind of numb. And then, again, I don't remember how long. My mom walks in with the senior pastor, Robert Forsyth of our church. And at that moment, there was just something that I knew something was wrong. I remember my sister falling. So when you walked in, we had a Cape Cod. So when you walk into the front of the house, you have the stairs right here, and then a long hallway, and then right here was a mirror. And I remember my sister just falling to the ground and screaming, saying her life was over. And I didn't know why she was doing that, because I was in our living room, actually where this photo was taken. So it was a sunken living room. So on the other side was the top part, and there was all of our family photos and stuff. And I remember my mom coming over to me, and she said that your father was in an accident and he died. And I just remember saying, "No, Mom, Daddy's coming home. Don't worry, Mom, Daddy's coming home. Daddy will be home. Watch. He'll walk through that door at 5 o'clock and he'll grab his slice of cheese. Daddy's coming home." And my dad never came home. So just to give a context, my dad, again, worldly man, and then in our house, we had a lot of worldly things in our house, and one of which was a huge photo of a naked woman. And I thought I was going to grab it, but it's back there, so I did not grab it. But so my dad, immediately when he became a believer, he took down that photo and he crafted with his own hands an amazing cross. I think I showed that to you, Sandra. Etched it out, this huge wooden cross. And he stuck it on that wall in place of that naked woman. And I tell you that because I remember just sitting underneath that cross, knowing that I had such a relationship with Jesus. And I never asked why. I didn't question God, not at this point. So from that point forward, from like 14 to 16, I'll be honest, guys, it's a blur. I don't remember much. I think I became, even though I'm an extrovert, I think I became very inward. Secular music was not allowed to be played in the home. And when my sister and I did, we always hid it, whether it be the cassette tapes and the Walkman or whatever. And I remember that, because my sister and I were never really close growing up, which is odd because we're only 22 months apart. But at this point, I remember just singing a lot of music was my comfort. And I would walk, I'd put the little Walkman in and I would just walk, I'd have extra batteries in my pocket and I would walk or ride my bike for hours on end. And I would just sing, whether it be secular or Christian. And, I never really talked to God, though. I just I knew he was there, but I was never angry. I never hated him for taking my dad. But then things kind of changed for me, and I think the enemy kind of capitalized on a lot of things. Because I went inward with my emotions, I don't, when I mean fake, I wasn't fake like fake personality. I would always put on that fake smile for people. I was a performer, right? So I sang. So there was always that level of I still had to continue to being somebody. So anyway, I began singing a lot more, doing more solos in church. And I always remember people saying, "Oh, Kim, you're so anointed and God's given you the gift," and da-da-da-da. And then secular music started to become very pivotal in my life. Michael Jackson, Prince, Whitney Houston, her very first album. Then rock groups like, Skid Row, Bon Jovi. And I became connected. Like, I still love music today. I became connected with these songs, and I found myself longing and yearning to be on that stage and to be that performer. So my sister, she graduated on Long Island, and my mom said, when your sister graduates, we're going to move you. And I don't think, really, to this day, 16 years old was a really great age to move anyone. I'm just going to give any parent who's listening to this advice. If your child is an adolescent, I just wouldn't move them. 16 years old for me was a challenging age. This was actually me at 16. When I moved down to Florida, the whole sun and hairdo. But this, I was trying to find that photo, and I guess I don't have it. I thought I had it up here. Actually, that was the summer, my last summer on Long Island. I was a softball player, and that was the last time that I saw my friends, my family. And so my mom moved me to some cow patty town called Ocala, Florida, where there was more horses than people. And it was a culture shock coming from a very cultured environment of New York to some very white part of Florida, it was just very challenging for me. But because I am me, I am a strong person, I stayed and went, always in private school since the 5th grade. So I went to Ocala Christian Academy. And that is where I learned, and I don't want to offend anyone here in the chat, so please don't take it that way, but Southern Baptist was just very different than my non-denominational church. That is where I learned that because you're once saved, always saved, you can just do whatever you want. I'm being honest. Those folks taught me how to be more carnal than Christian, if I could be honest. And it was just different from the church that I grew up in. It was different from my friends that I had in church. My friends that I had in Long Island, Smithtown Gospel Tabernacle, were good, solid Christian friends. Now, again, did we, do stupid stuff as kids? Of course, but as far as the carnal activities, no, we just did not. So this was a little different for me, and I have notes because I don't want to go down rabbit holes. So anyway, 16, moved to Florida. I hated it. And my very first summer there was that August. So we moved in August because that's when school starts there. And I remember walking out to the mailbox and barefoot and walking back in. And within minutes, my whole body just broke out in hives. And keeping in mind that my mom just lost her husband, I didn't want to panic her, but I couldn't breathe. So for some reason in my brain, I said, well, let me take a shower. Maybe that'll make me feel better. And I remember they were having a Bible study at my mom's house. And so when I got out of the shower, I got dressed, and the hives now were all over my body. And so they called me in the midst of the prayer circle, and they prayed over me. And then at that point, I just was not feeling right. And my mom was driving, and as she was driving, I noticed I was getting tightness in my chest where I couldn't breathe. But I didn't want her to know that something was wrong with me. So I thought if I unloosened my bra that I could breathe. Again, I'm 16, I have no clue. So that's what I did, and she went to the first care one, and I don't know why we couldn't go there. There was no doctor on duty or lunch. I really don't remember. So we had to go about another 15 minutes out of the way. And the only thing I remember really from that day is when I walked in, the nurse looked at me, and I, gasping for air, I said, I can't breathe. But then I felt like I was going to get sick. So I asked her if I can go into the restroom. And that's all I remember. I'm lying. I remember my mom screaming no. And then I woke up. I was on a hospital bed. And I just remember this big old needle. I'm exaggerating. So anyway, it was fire ants. Anyone here who lives in Florida, those things are deadly. I was highly allergic. Did not know. There's enough venom in a fire ant to literally kill someone. So I went into anaphylactic shock. And when I woke up, I said, thank you, Jesus. I have no idea. Those were the first words out of my mouth. So let's move forward. I want to show you some photos here. So this was me and my youth pastor, Ron. So that's me. Oh, I can't show it. I'm not on there. Same girl, the sun and hair. That was my youth pastor. We went to First Assembly of God. And I just began to do what Kim does, right? So I hide my emotions through drama, acting, singing. So this was me at a singing competition. I wrote an article about my dad's death that made it into a magazine, and there was a Christian channel in Orlando. I have no idea if it's still there, Channel 55. Anyway, they put me on air, and I told my story. There I was again, 16 years old. This was me. We went back to New York to visit. Funny, same outfit. I noticed that when I was doing that. But anyway, so we would go back to Long Island and visit, and that was me singing. And then that is me in a play at our church called The Gospel According to Scrooge. And this is where the story is really going to be tough for me to talk about. Because this is the turning point in my life. So 16 years old, I'm in singing competitions. I always seemed to never place first in these Christian competitions. Like never. And I never understood why. But yet when I would sing around secular people, they were like, oh my gosh, you're so good. So being a performer at heart, plays, solos. There was one time that my mom, again, Bible study, prayer meeting, I have no idea. Just a gathering at the house. I interrupted their meeting because I wanted to perform Carmen's song Celebration, and I just like literally interrupted them while they were talking. I was like, y'all want to see something? I didn't say y'all because we didn't talk like that. I say y'all now. I said you guys. So anyway, that just shows, I would mask feelings with, just performance. And I do that today. Like if I get emotional, I want to say a joke or I kind of change the subject. So, okay. So I was 16, almost 17 years old, and going to First Assembly in Ocala, and I will call out names today, and I don't care. So we put that play together, The Gospel According to Scrooge, and I don't know if anyone here has ever been in a play before. I guess I can go to the comments if you guys want to give me a thumbs up. You guys can let me know if you've ever performed in a play. And if so, then you understand you have to do rehearsals and a lot before the play. And this play would usually bring in about 2,500 people. It was a big church. So about a week before performance, you literally rehearse every single night before the performance. And I had a leading role, 2 leading roles. I was a celebrant dancer, not celibant. That's what I've been for 12 years, a celebrant dancer. And then the second role I had was me and Scrooge had an argument. And I was like, that's not true, that's much. And he would say something, and I'd be like, sir, you greatly misconstrued it. And then he says something else, he yelled at me, and then, I fainted. So that was my role with Scrooge. Scrooge was played by a Tim McDaniel, the pastor's son. Again, I was 16. Tim, well into his 30s, married, kids. So I totally forgot the most important part of the story to kind of lead into what I'm going to say now. So about 9 or 10 years old, I was introduced, and I don't know if YouTube is going to censor this, to pornography by one of my neighbors. So that kind of changed drastically my trajectory, my viewpoint, even to this day, of when it comes to sex, to be honest with you. Everything in my life changed at that moment sexually. It was just, everything was heightened. So when I see what we're happening today with our kids, I get very angry inside, because to think that that doesn't affect your child, you're smoking crack like Hunter Biden. So let me just say that. So I forgot that. That was kind of pivotal. Here I am, 16 years old, almost 17 years old. And we were done rehearsing for the evening. And Tim walks over to me and says, hey, do you want to go over our lines one more time? And I just, with naivety, was like, sure, let's go ahead and do that. By this time, everyone is out of the church. So it's just me and Tim. And that was not his intention. Sorry. That night, a grown man took advantage of a young girl. And it shattered everything in me. It also shattered my faith in God. And this is where my life changed. Again, the ever performer, went out there and I performed that play. I put on my big girl britches, I put on my fake smile, my dancing shoes, and I sang that solo. And I danced that part. And I just remember him in that play. He just acted like nothing, like it was no big deal, like he'd done it before. And the next year, so I was 17 now, that was that photo that I showed before. That was the first year the Ocala had snow, and Tim did not perform as Scrooge that year. Looking back, I feel like maybe that was God's protection. It was a new Scrooge. I still had the same leading role and stuff like that. But I'm not going to lie, guys. I hated church people. I hated God at this point. I looked at the hypocrites in the church. My focus went to man, and you call yourself a Christian and you do A, B, C, and D. But you see, the thing is God never left me. I'm the one who turned around and walked away. Still saved, but I was the prodigal who wanted the inheritance to go do Kim. So, never told anyone what happened with Tim. And now I'm 18 years old. Told my mom, you can't make me go to church anymore, and I'm not going to go. So I didn't go. At 18, I left church. And at that same point, my mom remarried my stepdad when I was 18. So from 18 to 20, I mean, I was a tad rebellious, nothing that was too dramatic, right? I cursed a lot more. I drank a little, like wine coolers and stuff, or maybe some strawberry Boone's Farm or whatever that thing was. Mad Dog 2020, I think that was the drink back in our day. I remember losing my virginity at 18 years old to someone who was a lot older than I was, and he was in the Navy. And then, so just let me preface that. Tim never, we never had sex. I don't know what to say or not say on YouTube, but he did things that a grown man should not do to a woman. Everything but the physical. Just use your imagination. That's all I'm going to say. So anyway, Scott Lesser, that was my first. And, I partied, just, casual stuff. And I want to say that. So, and I think because I knew deep down, like I didn't want to get too far from God, even though I wasn't kind of liking him right now. I didn't want to get too far from God. Well, when I was 20, I moved back to New York. And my mom really didn't want me to go, but I said I'm going anyway. And I left. and I was arrested when I was in New York. Guys, glad you know all this about me. I was arrested for a pound of weed. Wasn't going to sell it like I told the cop. I was going to smoke it. So I was a bit of a hood rat. Started dating interracially when I was 20. Then I kind of stayed in that lifestyle for about 8 years. And if you guys want to see, so this was, so that was me. I don't know if Deidre is in the chat. So Sandra, if Deidre's given me a thumbs up, I know there's a delay, but there might be a Deidre in the chat. That's my girl. She had seen these photos. So if Deidre is in the chat, she might give a thumbs up. So anyway, I sent her this photo. This was me at 21 years old. This is after I came back from New York. So notice my beeper and, but here you go. This was me and my girlfriend, Jen. I was all up getting my hair done, like a stack cut. So I'm in the back in all the yellow. I used to get my clothes airbrushed, if that tells you anything. And my girls, Pam, that's her, her daughter's now grown, I'm sure. Precious, that was her daughter, Precious. But anyway, her salon. So, like I said, I moved back to New York. I got arrested, came back to Florida. And at that point, my mom still didn't even know. And I'm not going to go through everything that happened in New York. That's not even here nor there. Let's just say it was a crazy, wild time for me. That's all I'm going to say. So then at 21, that picture that I showed with the beeper, from pressure from my stepdad, it was like kind of that ultimatum, either she goes or I go, right? So my mom chose the stepdad, and at 21, she kicked me out. And so from 21 to 27, that part of my life is just one continuous blur. The only things I really remember is I did have my significant other, Bernardo, met him on my 21st birthday. We dated on and off for like 5 years. We had a very wild relationship. He was my Puerto Rican lover and, boxer. And we just were very, very toxic together. He drank, I drank, he did cocaine, I was smoking weed. So our relationship was just extremely toxic all around. At this point, my partying intensified. I'd go from job to job to job. My mouth was intensifying and I would cuss you. And I was just a very angry person in all areas of my life. It did not matter. And it's because deep down I hated myself. I hated the fact that I was running from God. There was just so many things working in my life. So my drinking every day, I moved all the time. I couldn't even tell you the gambit of apartments that I lived in. And I always called it, I wrote a blog a long time ago called A Restless Spirit. And I don't think a restless spirit's always a bad thing. I think sometimes it's a good thing. Like right now, I'm, single. I can go anywhere I want. So if God were to call me to move, I would not think twice about moving because I'm not attached to anything. No husband, no kids, no pets. I'm out of here. So at this point, I was living in Ocala from 16 to 28. And at 28 years old, I had the opportunity to go into restaurant management with Cracker Barrel. And I very, very briefly came back to the Lord. And those times in my life, they didn't last very long. But that was the first time since 18, so almost a decade of running. I'd go to a church with my mom like on Christmas Eve or something, but I was never really in tune with the Lord. I never prayed, never read the word, never called myself a Christian because I didn't want to be like the hypocrites in the church. So anyway, at 28, I went into management. Then all of a sudden, I go to Nashville for training, or Lebanon for training. And here I am again, just intoxicated by the world. And I began drinking again, cursing again, having sex again. And it didn't last long. My rededication back to the Lord. It was always so exhausting, if I could be honest. And then sin would draw me back in. So anyway, at 28, I was at Cracker Barrel, like I said, in Ocala. And then when I was in that store, due to an investigation of me dating one of my employees, I guess I can say it now, at the Ocala store, I mean, they couldn't prove it. So they simply moved me from Ocala to Gainesville. And at this point, I, again, very briefly, stopped drinking, stopped cursing, and I was just walking with the Lord. And this comes into play because I used to work with a manager in the Ocala store, Paul Lakers. And all of a sudden I get a call at my store. I go into the office and I'm like, this is Kim, how can I help you? And it was like, hey, Kim, it's Paul. How are you? I'm like, I'm good, Paul. Da, 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 da. Had no idea he left the Ocala store, is now a GM. And he's like, hey, do you want to come to the Goodlettsville store in Tennessee? So the Kim, and I still kind of do that today, I don't really wait for anyone. I don't wait for the Lord. I'm very impulsive. So I said, sure. But I had to pray on that. So at that point, I prayed, and I had just started renting a home in Newberry, Florida, which is a little bit on the outskirts of Gainesville. And all of a sudden, God just started opening doors. So I moved. I called Paul, and I said, okay. I said, I've been praying, and I feel like this is where the Lord wants me to go. So as I'm traveling to Tennessee, I don't know if you guys will remember this, I am driving my Hyundai. I'm sorry, I'm lying. I am driving a 25-foot U-Haul with my Hyundai Sonata behind it. And this was in October. It was 1 month after 9/11. So I moved in October 2001. And totally must have been from the Lord, because if you can think of everything that can go wrong when you move, it happened. The U-Haul broke down. Thank the Lord it broke down, because if I would have kept driving, the hitch was not on correctly, so my car would have rolled off the back of the U-Haul. So that was actually from the Lord. And then my movers never showed up, and then my high and drunk neighbors were like, hey, y'all moving in? What you doing here? I lived in Old Hickory, Tennessee, which I say Nashville, it's on the outskirts. And they helped me move my stuff in the house. And then I had to go to work the next day. It was great. So I think I worked like 10 to 8 that day. So anyway, I kind of stayed with the Lord. I don't know how long it was. Not long at all, I'll tell you that much. And all of a sudden, my very first time that I get to go out, where does Kim want to go? Well, she wants to go to downtown Nashville. I want to see what it's like. So the devil knows how to reel me back in, and that's by the accolades of man. So I was sucked right into Nashville. And so anyway, before I show you all those photos, this was always Kim drinking. These are just photos of me throughout my years. Always drunk, always drinking. I invented selfies, just so you know, before they even came out. I should have been the selfie inventor. This was me one time I went back to Nashville on vacation. I couldn't show all the photos for me dancing on the bar at Coyote Ugly. It wouldn't be family friendly. Here is me, as you guys all know, and I'm going to go through that story there about who I would date or not date. So anyway, more photos of me randomly talking to some dude. This one right here, a Halloween party, country concert. This girl here was and still is a very good friend of mine, Lisa. She's the one who's going to come on here to do her LifeClip. So Lisa and I have a lot of history. We partied a lot together, a lot. So everywhere I went, everything I did, this was me, always drunk. I'm smoking. You can tell the way my hand is. Again, an alternate lifestyle that I lived, always intoxicated. This was me shortly after my divorce. And the only reason I'm putting up this photo is to lighten the mood, because that is me being silly and stupid and crazy like I always am. So with that being said, I went and just, Sandra, while I'm talking, hon, can you just go in there and delete those photos? Because I want to upload that one folder. You can just hit the 3 dots and it says delete overlay and they'll be removed. I don't think I have to show anything else. So anyway, I fell in love with the singing. Absolutely fell in love with it. And when Sandra's done with that, so this is what we used to do in Nashville, or probably any industry. You do what's called a press kit. And in that press kit, you would put like 5 or 6, 8 by 10 photos of yourself. You would have your cover demo. And then at that point, you would also, maybe have like a card or contact sheet, where people can get in touch with you. You would have your bio in there. So I was serious. It was something that I wanted to do. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is it. So I'm going to see if I could do that while you're doing that, Sandra. Give me 1 second. I think we can both work this here together. We can. So I'm going to add some photos here. And the reason I'm doing this is it has been brought to my attention by another podcast, and Sandra knows that entire story, that I got into doing this podcast for the purposes of fame and money. And let me explain something to you guys. That couldn't be the furthest from the truth, because I already had my opportunity with all of that in Nashville. I do this for the Lord. And, when I was a heathen, as I call it, or carnal, that same passion that I had is the same passion that I have of what I'm doing currently right now. And who I was then is not who I am now. But anyway, this one was not in my press kit. This is just a funny photo of me always trying to, ever be the clown. But so these photos were some of the ones that, and you have to have many press kits because they come and they take them. So, you leave them with the record label that you meet with. So I had a friend of mine and she came in and just took some photos of me while I was in Nashville. Yeehaw, y'all. This is my favorite photo. I love it. This one, sorry, showing a little bit too much there. But she kind of took me all around Nashville and we took some amazing photos. And I absolutely loved it. So this one here, that was my favorite as well. But this one here was me when I was in the studio, doing my cover demo. That's actually on YouTube on the playlist. So that was me during that time. And I really, really, really enjoyed Nashville. I enjoyed singing. I enjoyed being on the stage. I enjoyed going to the song nights and just really basking in that. Unfortunately, God didn't call me to Nashville for that. And to this day, I'll never know why. But I know that I was called there, but I never followed through. So let me back up just a smidge before I move into the rest of the story here, because this is really important as to why I am the way that I am today. I know I mentioned this time and time again. So my mom, growing up with her, she was always kind of not doctrinally sound. She doesn't have a discerning bone in her body, unfortunately. Went to a Benny Hinn church with her when she was slain in the spirit because she wanted to break generational curses. I've seen Joyce Myers with her a couple of times. Women of faith. And all this, I've always said, it was always when I was backslidden. And she would take me to this thinking that it would help. So thank the Lord that it never did. Clearly, those messages never helped me on my journey, I'll tell you that much. So anyway, Women of Faith, I went a couple of times. The PTL Club, went there when Jim and Tammy Faye. And then my mom also took me to many, many country concerts like Alan Jackson, Martina McBride, Sugarland, Toby Keith, Miranda Lambert. And my mom would allow me to drink and not smoke weed. I hadn't smoked weed in forever. But smoke cigarettes and drink and get intoxicated because she was my DD. And she would always tell me the thing that I'm sure all of us have heard: sin takes you further than you want to go, and it keeps you longer than you want to stay. So sure, Ma. I never listened to her. So here I am in Nashville, the lights of Broadway. And at this point in my life, from 30 to 33, I was in a place of, I don't want to say sexual confusion. I don't know if just like the 9-10 being shown such vivid actions at such a young age on the screen, what happened with Tim. But something inside of me really began to change a lot when I was around 28, but really heightened at the age of 30. And it was at this time in my life that I dated both male or female, and it did not matter. However, I never would call the girl my girlfriend. Couldn't tell you why. Just never did it. I was never relational as far as holding hands, going out, things of that nature. And I need to keep it PG if I can, because I don't know what YouTube is going to do. Okay, so now, because of all the poor choices that I made when I lived in Nashville, because that's what you do when you're carnal. You make poor choices all the time. And I say it's God trying to get your attention. So I want to just stop here and pause for a moment and say this. If you are carnal, backslidden, whatever term you want to use, Kim personally, if you're inundated with sin like I was day in and day out, drinking, sex, pornography, because I still had the addiction, I never called myself a Christian. Never. I believed in God, but I never called myself a Christian because I knew that I was like the hypocrites at First Assembly of God. I didn't want to be like those people. So when I was sinning, oh boy, I was sinning. When I walked with the Lord, I dropped everything. So I say that for a reason. Now, can we fall and stumble? Absolutely. I still do it to this day. Are we still flesh? Can I have carnality? Absolutely. But there's a big difference now between a carnal Kim right now and a carnal Kim back then. Because the devil knows, even when I am in carnality, that I will never, ever turn my back from the Lord. I don't want that inheritance and walk away. I'm not going to run back to my Father and be found in the pigsty. So now, coming home from Nashville because of the poor choices that I made. So remember, I'm driving in a 25-foot U-Haul with my car behind me. Well, didn't quite turn out that way coming home. I'm driving my Hyundai Santa Fe that almost got repoed, that my mom, because my mom was my bailer outer, like, hey mom, I can't pay my rent. Hey mom, dishing out money, right? Hey, I gotcha. And that comes into play as well, a little bit down the story. So anyway, I'm driving the Sonata. Why do I keep saying Sonata? Because I've had like 3 of them. And behind me is a 5x6 little trailer behind it. I sold everything. I came home with like nothing, hardly, except for me and my dogs. So anyway, I'm not going to go through those little nitty-gritty details from that point forward. So at 33, I met, and soon after meeting Eric, that was my ex-husband, we got married. Again, I'm not going to go into that whole story. So I married him in 2006, and we divorced in 2008. So we only stayed married really before we separated for a little over a year. I can't really put the blame on Eric. In some cases I can, but I'd probably cheat on myself too. Now, he didn't physically cheat. He mentally and emotionally cheated. However, I'd be cheating on myself too. So I was rude. I was arrogant. I was so mouthy. I hated everything and everyone. It was just a really bad time in my life, and he kind of took the brunt of that person. That's why I drank. I think that's why I always stay inebriated, because I was some days I couldn't even catch my breath because I was running unbeknownst to me, right? I wasn't like physically running, but spiritually I was running, and I was just drained. I was just drained. So again, I was never godly. And so during mine and Eric's relationship, right in the beginning, we went on a 15-day journey. We're not married. We're still seeing each other. And at this point, we are living together. And so he owns his own trucking company even to this day. So we go on this 15-day journey. I'm sure you guys have heard this story before. And so as we're driving, we go from Florida to Long Island, from Long Island out to the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, which that's when I fell in love with the Pacific Northwest. I'm not going to lie. He hated it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so pretty. And then from Oregon all the way back down to Florida. So it was 15 days. And we're in a Cracker Barrel. And remember, if anyone remembers, you had the little books on audio that you could get, and little cassette tapes, or maybe it was CDs. I don't remember. But in there was the Left Behind series book on audio. I feel like it was the first 4 books. And so Eric knew that I had been church, because when we first got together, the 2 questions that he had asked me the one question I had asked him is, do you believe in God? Because no matter what, that was always a question. I knew I could never date someone who didn't at least think that God existed. So that was my question to him. And then I'll answer that in 2 seconds, Michael. I see your question. And then he asked me, well, if you're from New York, that means you're a Democrat. And I'm like, no, I'm not a Democrat. So anyway, that was our balance, right? Does he know God? Yes. Am I a Democrat or a Republican? I'm a Republican. So anyway, we're driving. A Cracker Barrel, Michael, is an amazing restaurant here in America. It serves just Southern food, like chicken and dumplings, fried catfish. It's so yummy. The biscuits, the cornbread, really, really good. So anyway, and that's who I was also the manager with for many years. So he comes to me with the one book on audio, The Left Behind. And now, mind you, we're in the same space in his truck. So again, use your imagination. We're not married. So Eric comes to me and he said, hey, babe, what is this? And he holds the book up. And I said, oh, it's some, and I had already known about the books previously. I said, oh, it's some book about some rapture that's going to happen. And he said, huh? And he said, well, like it's a church thing? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, let's listen to it. And I'm like, ugh, you got to be kidding me. So I think they were like 8-9 hours long. I don't know. So we get to the first book and he's asking all of these questions, right? And I'm trying to act like I don't remember a darned thing from what I remember in church. But of course I do, because I was raised in a church, even back then, that believed in pre-trib. So I explained to him, I said, Eric, there's coming a day when the Bible says that millions of people are going to poof, like vanish. She's like, for real? Like the book's not fake? And I'm like, yeah, that's what the Bible says. Like, I don't know, whatever. So I'm trying to be like all coy with it and not really engage in conversation. So then we get to the next Cracker Barrel. So what does Eric do? He tries to find the next book. Oh, we find the next book. Now, during this point, I said, Eric, he's like, well, do you want to start going to church? And I'm like, oh, man. So I said, Eric, if we start going to church, we can't be doing this. Y'all are grown. You understand what I mean? And I said, because I don't play that game. He's like, wait a second. I have a lot of friends that, party Monday through Saturday, and then they go to church on Sunday. I'm like, yeah, I'm not that one. I'm not that person. So I said, if we're going to go to church, we cannot sleep in the same bed. We can't do things at the house. He's like, okay. And I'm like, oh man, this guy, like, why is he agreeing to this? So we go to church, and I'm not going to lie, guys, because of me, it may have lasted a month and a half, 2 months. And all of a sudden, I'm right back down the road that I'm on. I'm drinking, whatever. And I really just never showed Eric, like, the true Jesus, right? So anyway, now another life clip in my life. This, I'm sure a lot of people can relate who are listening. It was at this point in 2005 that 2006. Sorry, I got to think of the year here. Because we got married in June of 06. So we found out we were pregnant. And I was ecstatic. And I was like, yes, we're having a baby. No, we're not having a baby. I had what is called an ectopic pregnancy. And I remember this because usually when someone has an ectopic pregnancy, it's within, 4 to 5 weeks, because your number will be normal once you find out you're pregnant. And then because the baby is now in your fallopian tube, that I think it's called HTC, whatever that number is that they measure, for all you mamas out there, you can correct me in the chat, but that number just kept lowering. So it was at that point on the ultrasound that my doctor had said, here's your baby. And he was showing me, but I was just so adamant, that, oh no, that's not in my tube. Like, again, denial, going back to when my dad died. Don't want to see what's right in front of me, right? I want to put it colorful and make it real, even though it's not real. So I went 8 weeks, which is not a good thing because literally your tube can burst and you can die. And so at that point, Eric was on the road, and I called him and I let him know. And he said, Kim, they have to, you have to go in for surgery. So I, again, just didn't know how to process that information. So the next day was my surgery. I knew Eric would be there later when he got off the road. He was transferring his load, which he used to transport boats. I think his brother Chris was meeting him. And so I knew Eric would be there, not during the surgery, but a couple hours after. So my sister at that point was driving in from Orlando. And I remember calling her. I was in excruciating pain. There was blood like all over. Sorry to TMI here, guys. All over my bathroom floor. And so called the doctor. And so emergency surgery was being performed. My sister met me at the hospital. Still have the incision. It's the scars of our life, right? We still see the scars of our life. And that point in my life between the drinking, and again, here I am blaming God. So that's what I think we do that when we're backslidden or carnal. We tend to blame God for everything. Like, why would you take such a good man? Why did you take my dad? Why did you allow Tim to molest me? Why did you now take my child, right? And the Bible is very clear, right, that God does these things for a reason. And I didn't understand the reason. I was so mad, guys. You have no idea. And at this point, I was extremely depressed. Eric and I had moved out of Ocala into this tiny single wide trailer, and I knew we were moving into the double wide because they lived on a lot of acreage, so his parents were building the home in the back, so Eric and I were going to get into the double wide. And I remember I just wasn't me, y'all. I really wasn't. It was a very dark time in my life, very painful. I remember cursing God, saying, if you're really up there, then why did you do all of this to me? And I got into this, and if anyone's ever battled depression, you'll know exactly what I mean by this saying, that you feel like you're in a corner in a room, and even though, let's just say it's a corner in my living room, that corner feels so small. You know that you can walk out of that corner, but you feel trapped in that little space, and it's dark. And not just because you have to go to work, you still have to do life, but your mind is still in that corner, in that room. And for me being, and I always say the ever performer, and I brought all that up for purposes here, guys, that has always been me, right? The class clown, the one who will make you laugh, the singer, the actress. That's my nature, is to make sure that everybody in the room not only notices me, because yes, of course I want to be noticed. That's always been in my DNA, but that I bring a smile to your face, no matter what. I didn't want to make anyone smile. And I sure as heck didn't smile. So Eric was very concerned, and unbeknownst to me, he called my mom and my stepdad, and they came out. They were living, or still do, in Denellen. They came out to Crystal River, where Eric and I lived. And I remember the door opened, and I remember them standing there. And I looked at Eric, and I won't use the words that I said, but basically, what are the blank, 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 blank are they doing here? And he said, babe, you need help. I don't know where my wife went. And by the way, I changed everything. Like, the original wedding plan was going to be horse and carriage and getting married at the Ocala Hilton and the beautiful flowing white dress and just thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, I didn't want that anymore. So our wedding turned out to be really simple, really quiet. We got married. My mom lives on the Withlacoochee River. And it was just blah, because I was blah, if I could be honest. I just couldn't wait for our honeymoon, because I knew it was all inclusive and I could just drink my sorrows away. And that's what I did. And then when David and Diane came over, I remember them saying, like, just let's pray it out of her. And that didn't work, guys. You know, I don't remember the love. I don't remember compassion. I just remember these two people coming into the house thinking that they could just King James it away. And it was so much deeper than the King James and the prayer. My heart was broken, guys, in a million pieces. And I felt like I was 14 years old again, you know, just standing in that living room waiting for my dad to come home. And then I was 16 when Tim molested me. And then I was this age and that age. And it's just like this thing just kept running and running through my head. And I remember Eric, he said, I have to go on the road. And back then we had the little flip phone. So when you would do video, it was always like this tiny little screen. And I remember he was blowing up my phone trying to call me one day, and I didn't want to live anymore, guys. And that dark depression took thoughts in my head, and the devil took over, and it took everything in me not to take my life. And I really don't remember the intervention that God used that time. I really don't. I just know I didn't do it, because clearly I'm sitting here. So anyway, let's move forward. That place of brokenness just continued in my life. And then when I got divorced, I really didn't care, if I could be honest with you. I was a terrible wife. I never really was in love with Eric. I loved him, but I wasn't in love. There's a big difference, because I couldn't love myself. So how can you love somebody else when you are literally hating everything about you? So let's move forward. My life from that point forward, 35 to 38, guys, it was off the chain crazy. I did some crazy stuff that I'm not even going to repeat here on air. I can't remember much. I'm just reading my notes here. I said I drank so much. The things that I did and said are all a blur. There were one-night stands, waking up with my head on the pavement and my body in the car. There were fights. I remember waking up in strange places, had no idea who the guy was next to me. How did I even get here? And it was just that over and over and over again for 3 solid years. But those dots, God was connecting those dots. And I know that sounds really strange, but once you are chosen, you are always His. I need for you to hear that. Let me repeat that. Once you are chosen, you are always His. There's not a time when God says, let's keep bringing up our past. And it was funny because today at work, I was listening to Matthew Mayer, his this previous Sunday's message, and he was tidying up Genesis 50. And we, as Christians, we tend to think that we have to keep asking God, forgive me, forgive me, and not that. And now listen, if we sin to keep our right standing with the Lord, absolutely, right? Like, Lord, forgive me for doing that, A, B, C, and D. It keeps our relation with God intact, okay? So therefore, we're not being backslidden or carnal. So immediately if I say or do something, I'm like, Lord, please forgive me. But we don't really have to say that, because it's not, like Matthew said, God's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even, he casts it as far as the east is from the west. He doesn't remember it. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now, Kim. Like, what do you mean? We hold ourselves in that condemnation and that weight of bondage and the weight of our past. And Amber, I know you're in the chat, girl. I know you can attest to that. We always want to go back. Okay, well, that's what I was. That's where I was, da-da-da-da-da. And God's saying, I don't even see that anymore. I've never saw that the moment I was 5 years old. So if you think about all of those years, God really, he didn't see all of that. He was still holding the hand of his daughter. So now, that's why I used 1 Peter 2:9, proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So yes, was I in darkness because I was carnal? I was always saved. Absolutely. So now at this point in my life, yes, I'm old, guys, when this story is being told, because I have only been walking with the Lord now, solidly, never turning my back, for 12 years. At 38 years old, God shook me to the core, but he had to remove one person in my life who was always there to bail me out, and that was my mom. My mom was, okay, let me help her pay her rent. Let me help her do her car payment. Here's your electric. Here's your cable. Here's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And therefore, I was leaning upon my mom. Mommy, come help me. Mommy, come help me. Mommy. And I'd take the lecture. I'd sit there and hear the lecture just to know that I would get the money that I needed. Right? So, okay, yeah, yes. Knowing deep down, I'm like, just give me the money. That's all I want. I would appease her. So at 38 years old, because of the lifestyle that I was living, the poor choices that I had made, I lost my home, I lost my car, and then I decided, let me leave a good paying job and go back to school and get a paralegal degree, which of course, now looking back, God actually has used that door, connecting the dots. So God made sure that my mom's hands were not part of this next story. So at 38 years old in 2010, this September will be 13 years. The first thing God had to deliver me from was my nicotine. Now, if you're a Christian and you're battling smoking currently today, I've got news for you. You're still saved. I'm not going to pass any judgment on any Christian who smokes cigarettes. Hear me and hear me well. You're still going to heaven. It is what it is, right? I am right there with you. I understand what it's like to quit. I understand the battle to quit smoking. God's got you. Whatever prayer you want to give him, he can deliver you if you truly want to give it up, right? So in 38, I quit smoking. God took my biggest crutch away. So at 39 years old, it's 2011. April 2011. So I lost everything and I had to rent this tiny little room. Bougie little Kim had to rent a tiny little room with a twin size bed. The room just barely fit the bed and a desk, and I think the TV was in there. So here, me and my dogs were renting a tiny little room. It was with a Christian couple, but I was like, yeah, all you Christians are the same. We'll see, right? Because that's what I have to do. I have to see. Let me see if they're really Christian. Well, they turned out to be really Christian. And that's the door that God opened in my brokenness, in my lowest part of my... Here I am, 39 years old, guys. I don't even have a pot to pee in. Okay, I have nothing to show at 39 years old. The only thing I have to show is a girl who was addicted to pornography, a girl who was addicted to sex, a girl who was addicted to alcohol. And God said, I'm done playing games. So, April 2011, God met me in that small room. Now, I'm not a fan of The Passion of the Christ, but God used that movie tremendously in my life at 2:00 in the morning. For some reason, this particular night, I couldn't sleep, was not smoking. So I was like fiending for my nicotine. Couldn't drink in the house, so I had to like hide it in my car and then go get the drink and then pour it and like put a little, ginger ale or whatever I was mixing my Crown with. And as I'm ready to leave the room, I turn on the TV and there is The Passion of the Christ. And I had seen that movie. I saw it with my ex-husband. We saw it in the movie theater. I had seen the movie probably a dozen times, guys, before this night. And there was something so unbelievable that happened to me in that room that when I fell on my knees, it was like this weight that I had been carrying since I was 14 years old. In that moment, the tears it was like a lake in that room. It was like years and years and years of tears. It was agony. It was, God, I've hated you. You did A, B, C, D, E. Why would you do this? Da, 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 da. So, said, okay, Lord, this is me and you. We are going to walk this road together. I'm going to be right there with you. Well, the only problem I had, guess what, guys? Still addicted to pornography. Could not let go of that. For the first year, I'm still in church. I'm reading the word. I'm praying. But man, I just could not get over that part. So my very first year, so I leave Ocala. God opened a door for me to go live with a friend. Was kind of really not really in a good place financially. So Donna kind of made a deal, like pay me this a week, da 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 da. So I was waiting tables at Logan's Steakhouse, right there off of John Young Parkway in Orlando. And at this point, I was still going to Dirty Bingo every Tuesday. We don't need to tell you what Dirty Bingo is, just use your imagination. And I was really convicted, but I still kept going, and it was just something I just could not shake. And then this here is probably, some may disagree with what I'm going to say here, because now I am walking with the Lord, and again, once saved, always saved. So here I am at just another dark point in my life. And I don't really bout with depression, guys. My life, my cup is always, like literally, it's full. It's never half full. I can have a drop of water in there. I'd be like, that's enough to quench my thirst. So I was waiting tables at Logan's, and I said, Lord, I'm doing A, B, C, and D for you. And that's what I do, right? I call on God and I say, I'm doing all of this for you, and yet I'm getting nothing in return. But yet I got the biggest gift in return, and that was the death of his son. But oh no, Kim would never say that. Like, no, God, you need to give me this because I'm doing this. And the darkness kind of enveloped me again. And I don't know if anyone knows anything about a Shiba Inu. Beautiful Japanese dog. They're cute. They're very unique. One thing that about a Shiba Inu is they're not very loving. They're very cat-like, right? So they'll love on you when they want attention. So Oolong, O-O-L-O-N-G, kind of like the T. Oolong was my Shiba, and Haley Jade was my terrier. That's my oldest one that I just lost in 2020. She was my mangy little hood rat, and mama kisses all day long. But Oolong, not so much. He was my bougie dog, right? Oolong was my man. He was my man magnet. Everywhere I went with Oolong, they was like, oh my gosh, look at your dog. I'm like, I know, do you want to come home with me? So anyway, with that being said, another dark little corner. And this one was a lot stronger than when I lost. I always said it was a girl. I was going to name her Asia Diane But anyway, I don't know if it's a girl. I guess I'll find out when I get to heaven. But this one just was different because of my age. I was older, poor choices that I had made. And now this is a woe is me, right? Now I'm having a Kim pity party. And so I'm not going to say what took place or what I was going to do to take my life, but it would have happened that night. But God used a Shiba Inu, my dog Oolong, and I'll tell you how, and this is such a beautiful story. I'm sitting in this room, and I'm just ready. I'm ready to call it quits, guys. And all of a sudden, Oolong, because he's always on the bed, right? And I'm if this is the bed, I'm leaning my back. I'm off the bed, but my back is towards the mattress. I'm leaning like this on the mattress. And I'm ready to do what I'm ready to do. And all of a sudden, if my hand is Oolong, here comes this non-snuggy, kissy, licky dog. And he just gently licks me right here. That's it. And he goes right back down and he lays down. And you know what I prayed before Oolong did that? Is I said, Lord, if you're real, I need to know that you're real. Here comes this dog who Shibas just they're not lovable like that. And I felt like in that moment, that was God. I know this sounds weird. I'm not one of those weird people. That's when God used a dog. And I always said dog is God spelled backwards, but he used that sweet pup to get my attention. And folks, I'm here to tell you, from that day forward, I don't remember the day, I don't remember the time, but from that day forward, I have never looked at pornography. Well, I shouldn't say never. I'm lying. That would be a bald-faced lie. In 12 years, probably 5 times, right? I'm not that person. Everyone who knows me, I'm not going to sit here and lie. So I shouldn't say never. So in 12 years, I've never turned my back from God from that day forward. So for the past 11 years, I have never, ever, ever, no matter what happens in my life, I have never been in that dark hole ever again. And there's been a lot of things that have happened in my life. Lost jobs unbeknownst to me, 2020, Sandra knows that whole story. Uber, the attorney just out of the blue when COVID happened, literally lose my job. No notice, no nothing. I didn't panic. I was like, all right, Lord, you always have my back. And where I live, guys, I do live in a nice apartment complex, and God has blessed me, but I didn't panic. I just knew that God would provide. And I'm also a very hard worker. So let me just say that, an extremely hard worker. I will work 7 jobs to make ends meet. And God knows that. So here I was, Instacart kept me afloat. And through all of 2020, through all of 2021, until I landed the job in downtown Tampa. And then God opened the door where I'm at now at Public Finance. And I love that job. So, with that being said, I have never left Jesus at all. And when I moved, so I left Florida, so God opened the doors. Let me just tell you this. So after that darkened night when Oolong kissed me on my cheek, lick, that just sounds weird. So can I say kiss, Sandra? I just don't know. I got a kiss from my pup. I was serving waiting tables at Logan's, and Logan's wanted me to go into restaurant management. It was something I just did not want to do. And God knew that, because the restaurant industry, for anyone who works in understands it's a very dark industry, right? Most of the people party, they drink, it's a different beast, right? You don't go to bed, like normal people. So if the restaurant closes at 11, by the time we close and get out, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. You don't go home and go right to bed. So I would always use the alcohol to make me sleep. And 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you're sleeping. So it's just a routine. Then of course on a Friday night, if you get off, you're at the bar or the club, da 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 da. So it's just, the restaurant industry breeds a certain type of, lifestyle. So God knew, and I did not want to do that again. And plus you have no life. As a manager, you're working 70 hours a week. So you have zero life. And then, of course, you can't date your employees, but you're spending 15 hours a day there. So anywho, I knew that God was in control. So that night, that happened with Oolong. And then literally Wednesday of that same week, I get hired at a law firm in Orlando, downtown. And I'm here to tell you something, guys. It was the worst job ever. Those lady attorneys are insane. They are crazy. They are bat poop crazy. Any woman attorney is a wackadoo. And I was like, Lord, are you serious? But God brought me there for this reason. This is when the chiseling started. The chiseling of my mouth, the chiseling of my demeanor, the chiseling of my temperament. Because again, if you guys knew me just 11 years ago, even 5 years ago, even 6 months ago, no, I'm teasing, I could cut you to pieces with my tongue. I could just go off on you. I could hurt you so deeply that you would just be like, oh my gosh, Kim is so mean. So God brought me there. Hello, Pastor Kurt. I didn't know you were here. I just happened to look up and there you were. So God chiseled that part of me. But I had to see what I used to sound like and look like. And so he gave me Rosemary and he gave me Tina, two crazy attorneys. So anyway, with that being said, I was like, all right, Lord, whatever, you got me. And God just said, well, we're going to shift the story a little bit. And at that point, I moved to, thank you, Cindy Ray, appreciate that. I moved to Dallas, Georgia, which is on the outskirts of Atlanta. So it's about 32 miles. And that 32-mile trip, when I got hired at Turner, CNN, so 32 miles took me about an hour and a half to get to work, to and from. And so that's when I started working for the Belly of the Beast, CNN. And God opened doors when I was there. And the whole time, just so you know, so I was in Atlanta for 7 years. The first year, I was totally temp. God just kept that door with Turner open the entire time. And funny story here, I don't know if he'll ever see this, and I really don't care. So the gentleman that I moved in with, and not like that. So David and I, we had relations for like a month. And I'm not going to go into that story, but let's just say I broke the poor man's heart, and I wasn't very sweet. While my new boyfriend was at the store down the road, I went to David's house and broke up with him. That's how shady I was. Shady. That's what I said, shady. Did that sound like the other word, Sandra? It sounded like I cursed there. So anyway, so David is who had available space in his house, and it was a big enough house, and he knew that I had the 2 dogs. So he gave me 90 days. He said, okay, well, when you move here, you'll have 90 days to find a job. Well, come to find out, you guys, when he realized that I was a true Christian and nothing was going to happen, if you understand, we're adults here, the 90 days went to 30 days. So I had 30 days to find a job because David was not going to have his manly needs met. So anyway, God was like, I got you. You're my daughter. And so that's when he opened the door at Turner. Within a week, like 14 days, if that, of me being there, like 11 days. I don't know. I just moved. David's like, oh, well, you only have 30 days. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, then God like just miraculously opened the door. So for that solid first year, again, I'm temping. I'm in all different departments, right? Litigation. I went on the entertainment adult swim side. And it was great. I'm not going to lie. I absolutely adored working for them. And then went to go back to school to go get my master's in media management because I wanted my MBA. I wanted to grow with Turner. Well, as we all know, something happened in 2016. Yeah, that's when Donald J. Trump took office and I worked for CNN. Yeah, it was the worst time of my life. Absolutely the worst time of my life. So I continued to pray. And during this time, just so you know, the falsehoods in the churches were very prevalent. My first church was New Season, where they would play secular music like Don't Stop Believing, Katy Perry's Imagine Dragon, Katy Perry song and then Imagine Dragons. So I wound up leaving them. And then I did go to Passion City Church, which is Louis Giglio's church. And after 10 months, God, I don't want to say violently, but quite aggressively removed me. And then I went to Renovation Church, which was a very mixed church. I like culture. And God, I just felt a nudging to ask them about the rapture. Because I'm not going to go through the story. The article is actually, if you go to Pulpit and Pen, if you just type in my name and then Passion City Church, you can see an article that I wrote for Pulpit and Pen regarding that church. So anyway, Renovation Church, I felt the nudging of the Lord for to ask the pastor what his thoughts were on the rapture. And well, it's only God, because at that moment, their response wasn't biblical. So basically they said, well, it looks like Jesus would have to come 3 times and the earth has to be purged by fire first. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay. So I called my friend Tawny and I said, hey girl, we ain't going to this church either. She's like, oh my gosh, Kim, another one? So I said, yes, girl. I said, so let's just meet, and we would always go to lunch after church. So we just went to lunch instead at the Yard House. But God used Tawny to put me where I am today. So I'm bringing this full circle, and I see there's some questions, and then I'll get to that. So here I am, really hungry for everything Jesus. Everything. I couldn't get enough of the Bible. I couldn't get enough of good, solid biblical teachers. And that's when I found like J.D. Farag, and that's when I found Jack Hibbs. I used to listen to him back then, and some other people. But so I was listening to these biblically sound pastors, and I was like, yes, this is meat. This is what I need. And I would just have my books, and I would just go to town and write notes, and I just could not get enough. But my challenge in Atlanta was to find a good, biblical, solid church. And unfortunately, if anyone's ever been or lived in Atlanta, I understand traveling a distance, but y'all listen, traffic in Atlanta, you want to kill people. You can get a mani and a pedi in 1 mile because you're sitting in traffic for an hour. It's serious traffic over there. So the physical church was no good. Okay, so with that being said, one Sunday, Tawny was leaving a church that she was going to, and she said, hey, girl, do you want to meet for lunch? And I said, sure. So we met for lunch. And during this lunch hour, so Tawny is the reason that I have those RLEs, because without Tawny, I wouldn't be where I am today when it comes to falsehoods to this degree. So we're sitting there, and she starts opening the can, like just peeling the onion back for me when it comes to Hillsong, and at that time, it was Jesus Culture was real popular. And I'm like, what? And I remember singing the song Break Every Chain up in the car. Break every chain. Break. I was just going to town. And I remember her looking at me like, girl, what? Why are you singing that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, it's time to break every chain. And she's like, stop singing that. So then at lunch, she brought me down this huge rabbit hole. And I thank the Lord for her, because without her, I mean, I knew the Joel Osteens, right? Like Dr. Andy Woods calls it, and I love it, that low-hanging fruit. We all know Paula White and Joel Osteen and Joyce Myers. We get that, right? That's low-hanging fruit. Kenneth Copeland, Jesse Duplantis. If you don't know they're false, I'll just pray for you. So, but other people can be very questionable. Like, I don't know. Like, let me just listen to that again. So I began to read lyrics instead of hearing the music, because she knew, right? I love music. To this day, I love music. So how am I going to balance the two? How am I going to sing to the top of my lungs now for the Lord instead of singing for the top of my lungs for the crowd? And I know I didn't go through all of that, and I just didn't feel like it was important. So, but my place was always on the stage to be a performer. Now my place is behind the scenes, worshiping the Lord. And so I found the balance, and I just started paying attention to lyrics and forgetting about the rhythm. And the rhythmic beat no longer impressed me. If I heard a song, I would stop, Google the lyrics, see what the song said. If it was not biblically sound, or if it was like Jesus is like your boyfriend in the lyrics, I wouldn't listen to it. So now I stayed in the A for Atlanta, we call it the A, for 7 years. And Trump was elected. And I kept feeling this nudge to go back to Florida. And I'm like, oh no, Lord, I am not. Once I left. And I'm like, I'm not going back. As I know about Charity Gale, that's a big no on Charity Gale. I just happened to see that, Nancy. So anyway, with that being said, I, at that point, just kept feeling the nudge. So I kind of bartered with the Lord, and I said, okay, God, if you're calling me back to Florida, which I don't know why, I don't want to live inland. I have to make X amount of money because Florida is a terrible market with pay. So I kind of gave him some little bullets. And I'm not going to go through the entire story. I know Deidre, again, was she in the chat, by the way, Sandra? I don't know if she was. Deidre, she was. Okay. So Deidre, I told her the whole story. God, just where I live, this is God. I'm not going to lie, guys. Like, he checked every box. I have a partial view of the bay. I'm 7 miles from the beach where I live. An amazing community that I live in. Everyone who knows me knows that I walk with the Lord. I can still have fun around secular people. I don't need to get drunk. I don't need to curse. And I just show the love of the Lord. And I'm still cool, y'all. I don't need to be like some stuffed Christian where I can't gather with secular people, because if it came down to a conversation, they would say, you know, Kim is still cool, right? I don't judge anyone. It's not my place to judge, like the Bible says, right? I was reading that this morning in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. It's not my place to judge the outside of the church. It's God's place, but it's my place to witness to them or just show the love of Christ. So anyway, God checked all the boxes, opened the door, got a job, and that is how I landed here. And, you know, part of the reason I think I didn't get emotional is I had to go to the comments on some parts, so I didn't cry, because then I felt like you guys were like right here in front of me. But I appreciate you guys letting me share my heart tonight. And but that's what started this podcast. So in 2020, you know, I felt led of the Lord. This was pre-COVID, and I felt led of the Lord to do a thing called LifeClips. And it was a clip of our life. So again, the reason I call it that is none of us, right? My clip technically lasted, 20 plus years. Your clip may have lasted 5 seconds or 5 months. We don't know the clip of our lives, but we all have them. We all have, whether it be you were never saved and God brought you out of darkness, or someone like me, I was carnal, on again, off again, and God just finally said, okay, listen, you've always been chosen. This, again, you can take up election on your own. God foreknew me. He knew me before I was even in the womb. And he called me. And when he called me to do the podcast, I'm going to be honest with you guys, my first initial reaction was, Lord, I'm not going to do it because I don't know how to be fake. I can't come on here and do a podcast and not be real. And that has really actually hurt me, to be honest with you. I've had a lot of people who were with me in the beginning, and then boom, because, oh, Kim, you're just a little harsh, you're this, you're that. I am that way because the same passion that I had in the world is the same passion that I have for Christ. And I know exposing falsehood or telling someone like a Charity Gale, they might not want to hear that, but I'm not going to lie to you either and say thumbs up to that. So God has put me, Kim, in this circle of wanting to make sure, number one, that anyone, and I'm saying this right now to everyone in this chat, Sandra and I have another interview with another potential person who might come on the show. If you feel like you want to give your life clip, right? We video chat. Sandra's there with us. We talk about it. We see if God opens the door and leads me to do that, if I'm feeling the nudge from him. What is that life clip, right? That's the whole purpose of the podcast. So in the beginning, it was talking about anxiety and depression and addiction to pornography and these things where I knew that these were taboo subjects that the church never wants to talk about. I keep hearing my echo, and it's so weird because of my ear. So again, these are taboo subjects that the church never, ever, ever wants to talk about. Because let's not tell someone who had an abortion that it's okay, because it is okay. There is no sin, there is no lifestyle, whether you're gay, whether you had an abortion, whether you were a convicted felon of murder. There is no sin too grand that Christ cannot come in and change a life. None of us are beyond his reach. And that is my story to everyone is, listen, I might have been carnal, but I mean, of course I still knew, right? Deep down, that's why I was miserable and drank. But even if I wasn't, and God just happened to say, call me to serve him 11 years ago, I can still say that God, Jesus, pulled me out of that miry clay. He pulled me out of the pigsty. And when Christ washes us and he cleanses us and he opens our eyes to see, he never promised that everything was going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. So I say that because when I started this, I knew that I had to remain me. So whether that took me having 5 subscribers, 0, I was still going to plug away. And I'll tell you this, guys, in 2020, when YouTube pulled my first channel and I was plugging away on Rumble. So for those podcasters, and if you're ever listening to this, you know exactly, let me look in that camera, you know exactly who I'm talking to. I have never done this for fame and I've never done this for money. And we have the receipts, do we not, Sandra? Yes. So let me just say that, and you can see the emotion on my face right now. This has never been about me. Because if it was about me, I would be fake behind this camera. That's who I would be. I would appease the crowd. Instead, nope, I'm not. So I stayed faithful with 2 views, 0 views. I remember one time when I had 20 views on Rumble and I was like, oh my gosh, 20 people watched this video. I can't believe it. I remember when I had like 100 subscribers on Rumble. I thought I hit the lotto. I was like, all right, Lord, you're moving, you're working. So again, I'm not about that. I am about making sure that I have relationships with everyone that's in here, that you guys understand that who I am is who I am, even if we met on the street. I can't be someone that's fake because God called me for this season. And I love the scripture verse. I told a story about my friend Ruby. She got me the bracelet with Esther for such a time as this. There was a mug that I just got for such a time as this. So again, there is a call on all of our lives. And if you feel like you want to come on this show and share your life clip, you just reach out to me. questions@lifeclipspodcast.com. And let's connect. Because that is the premise of this podcast. Now, I'm not going to have a podcast for the next 2 weeks. My RLEs are still going to be up there. But that's the premise of this show. Is what is your life clip? What can we do to help another believer who is struggling? Because guys, I've got news for you. There's many carnal backslidden Christians out there that we want to check a box and say, well, look at them. Look at Kim, who's having one night stands, sleeping with men, sleeping with women, watching pornography, getting drunk, doing A, B, C, and D. She's certainly not a Christian. Right. In the mind's eye, of course, I didn't look like I was a Christian. But within me, I was a miserable wreck. I was a spiritually broken, backslidden, carnal person longing to really get that relationship back with my Father, but too embarrassed to go home. So like when the prodigal came home, the father never moved. And I know that's not a story technically about that. So again, if you want to come on, feel free, just email me and you will come on the show if it's a good fit. So now, 2020 happened, COVID happened, things started changing. I started really honing into the prophecy realm of things. And then God really called me, of which I'm going to be circling back to, the whole new age order, not the new world order, because there's such a massive spiritual deception. And that is where Tawny comes in. That is where her opening my eyes to this spiritual realm that is deceiving so many, both in the church and outside of the church, because there's a lot of unsaved people who are deceived spiritually, right? Their God is their supreme. So everyone believes in a God or the God, but which God is it? So anyway, that is why I am who I am today. So again, I always say I'm not everyone's cup of tea. That is why I'm bold. That is why I will be in your face telling you truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. It hurt in my life. I don't want to hear things. I don't want to hear, even to this day, oh, Kim, you're a little rough around the edges. And I have been. You know, I remember a friend of mine, that's what started the whole ordeal with that podcast. This is a legit life friend, and she got on my nerves, and I told her if you were in front of me, I'd probably slap you. So, but again, I've never denied the fact that sometimes I can be a little rough around the edges. But I want to be me, always going to be me. So if you want real truth advice, come to me. If you want someone to tell you a fairy tale to appease you, don't come to me. So I was bold in the world, and now I'm bold for Christ. I was crazy for being inebriated, and now I'm crazy for making sure that I'm of sober mind. And the reason that God called me to do these RLEs, and that's when all these spiritual attacks came in, is since October. I'm sure Sandra, if she was on air, should give a thumbs up to that. The devil doesn't want me to do these RLEs. And since I started them back last year, it has been one attack from the Christian community after another on me, and I'm not going to go into all of that. But because of the fact that I was around so many falsehoods from my mom, so many deceitful ploys of the enemy to keep me from what God chose me to do. And see, that's the regret that I live in, right? And after hearing Matthew's message today, I felt so good as far as coming here talking, not so much about my dad and Tim and trying to almost take my life twice. So those are tough topics, losing my child, right? Those are even in my practice runs, right? I didn't cry like I did then, but thinking about my dad, and I know he just changed neighborhoods. I'll see him one day. The Tim thing, I really didn't know if I was even going to say it, but that was a pivotal point when I really turned my back from God, because I couldn't stand, how can someone in the church do that to a 16-year-old girl? So anyway, that is why I am who I am today, and I lost my train of thought there. But anyway, I won't accept anything less than biblical truth, because I'm not here to please people. I'm here to please God. So, and I love you guys in the chat, but if I say something, or if we don't, there's going to come a time when we don't agree, and I get that. But it is what it is. Sandra, I see a few stars. If anybody has anything you want to ask me, nothing is off the table, except for the name of the podcast. I will not do that. I know they put me on blast. I will not do that. But anything else, I guess you can start putting up questions here for me. Sandra, I thank you guys for staying with me and hearing this. And I want to leave you with this before I get into the starred stuff here. Jesus loves deeply. And I want you guys to remember that no matter what, even if you're carnal right now, he still loves you. If you are truly his, and have been since whenever you became born again, he has not left. He has not moved. And carnality is very intoxicating. If sin was not beautiful, nobody would sin. I mean, let's be real here, guys, right? Sin is pretty. Sex is pretty. Pornography, believe it or not, is pretty. Drinking is pretty. I know I hang out by the pool. That's why I got my little tan working. It's very intoxicating. Like, I want to come back to my apartment and hang out and have a few Trulies. But I know what would happen if I fell into that realm. And then I look at the lost people and my heart grieves for them. So that's what I'm saying, guys. Jesus, no matter what, is there. And if you don't know the Lord and you happen to be listening to this on Rumble, if you don't know who Jesus is, and you feel like you're not worthy enough, or you have to clean yourself up to come to him, you don't. Because then you're never going to come, because we're never going to be clean enough, ever. Why? Because our righteousness is as filthy rags. So right now, we're all just, not me, not us who are saved, we're filthy rags. So it's never going to get clean. You are never going to be perfect enough to say, okay, now today's the day. I've got my act together. We're never going to have our act together at all. And I'm also here to tell anyone that sometimes we, and I'm as guilty of this as well, we have a tendency to judge those wrongly who are in the church. I would hope that someone who lived in my lifestyle would not be in the church and calling themselves a Christian. But again, I'm not here to examine that. That's up to God. I'm just here to point them in the direction to hopefully get out of it. But just love people through whatever they're going through. And me, Kim, if I, in all of my nastiness, and guys, I'm being serious. Like, I'm not always a nice person. I'm just not. And I would be lying if I said I've never made a mistake or never opened my mouth. We all have. And I'm just the one who's going to say, I do it probably a lot more often than I should, right? Whether it be driving or whatever the case may be. But Jesus is the restorer. He makes all things new. And I just want you to hold on to that tonight. So again, I appreciate it. Sandra, I guess the first question, and if anyone has anything else to say. Oh wait, I need to go to stars. Jesus was watching over you the whole time. He sure was, Evelyn. He knows when we'll come home. Yeah, he absolutely does. I agree. I absolutely agree. He definitely was. So Mama Rowe, Kim, what an encouragement you are. Jesus, our Savior, unwavering, miraculous. Sigh, sure makes me feel homesick. Amen. And I think that Jesus uses all of our life clips, for his glory. And I just want to make sure that no matter what I do, it's for his glory. And again, I mess up every day, every single day. I'm like, oh, Lord, did it again. But yeah. Oh, Sandra, can you do me a favor, though? If you can, post the link to Matthew Mayer's previous Sunday message. That would be great if anyone wants to listen to it. It was phenomenal. Okay, so next question from Nancy, Nan70. Can someone explain what Charity Gale believes? Okay, she's a modalist, a oneness. She's like T.D. Jakes, another popular guy. He's the black gentleman, good looking. I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. I'm drawing a blank. He used to be in the military. So if someone knows who I'm talking about, you can just put it in the chat. But anyway, so she is a modalist, charismatic roots. And I would stay away from her. So sorry. Sorry if that upsets you. Sylvia, it is because you are real that compels us to love you more. Okay, listen, I got a tissue. I don't want to cry, so I have to say something funny. Anyone have a funny joke? I don't know. Help me out, Sandra. Thank you, Sylvia. I appreciate that. And that's all I can be. All right, so now it looks like we got good breakfast. Kim, I think you dumped out everything tonight. Trust in God. And it was tough, good breakfast. It really was, especially the Tim part. And I think the second dark depression that I went through, because Christians don't ever talk about that. And the goal is to get out of it, right? Not to stay in it. But again, we don't know that person's life clip. We don't know the duration of that. I can see God using your testimony to help several people find hope. To God be the glory. Amen. Amen. I appreciate that. And then she also says here, I see that one too, Sandra, where she says the prodigal daughter. And it was, so I'll just say this then in my realness. So my mom, I don't know her heart. I can only hope that she's truly born again. But so when she, we kind of had a bit of a falling out in 2020. And I'm not going to go into all that. So anyway, I love my mom. We still talk, but we're just not as close as we used to be. And she's just really poor discernment. She's been indoctrinated with a lot of false theology. And you can tell her, and she just doesn't want to listen. She's just, even with the rapture. It's like I've never seen anyone have so lack of excitement for wanting to go home. I don't know. I'm 51 almost, and I just can't wait to go home, right? So with that being said, I shot her a text one day, and according to my mom, she prayed for her prodigal daughter to come home for years. And I came home, and I think I read this to you, Sandra, but so I texted my mom, and I said, the thing that confuses me, Mom, is the very one person that I wanted to talk Jesus with and Bible with and pray with and just do God with was my mom, was you. That's what I said, was you. And I said, but for some reason, the closer I get to Jesus, the further our relationship becomes. And that's been really tough for me. And I just keep praying to the Lord. You know, I bite my tongue a lot. Like when I'm around them, we all went to Orlando to watch my amazing niece perform her dance solo and perform with her dance company. And it was a great time. And my mom, she's probably the most joyless Christian you'll ever meet. But anyway, I love her regardless. And so I, a lot of times I just had a, don't say anything, just bite your tongue, and you just go on. So, but anyway, when I think of the prodigal, that's what hurts me the most, is her daughter finally woke up and has been serving Christ faithfully. And yet our relationship is the worst it's ever been the last 3 years. Okay, so Barbara R. She says, you got that, girl, before I jump ahead? Yeah, no. Want me to click it? I'll click it. Okay. She says, so Barbara, she says, do you still have the Sheba? So no, I lost my precious oolong. He left me August 15th, 2016, and he was 16 years old. And then a little under 3 years later, 3.5 years later, 2020 is when I lost Haley, which was my Haley Jade. She was my terrier mix. So do you want me to click the next one, Sandra? You got it. Okay. This is coming in from Val. Question, maybe you shared already, but was there a particular event that got your attention that caused you to stop going back to your old ways? That's a really great question, because really the only thing that caught my attention was looking at the Passion of the Christ and seeing what Christ did for me. It just hit me different this time, seeing it. Knowing that in all of my flesh and sinfulness and everything else, and I understand the passion, like that part with Jesus, I won't take that away from anything else in the movie. Mel Gibson, I think, did the best job at depicting what Jesus went through. And again, we really are not going to know. But as far as that beating, just the blood, the pain that I felt knowing that my Savior did that for me, like that's what got my attention. So yeah, I guess that's the only way I can answer that question. You good, Sandra? Okay, so the next one's coming in from Mama Rowe. So Kim, your testimony is one of the best I've heard in a long time. Thank you for letting us watch you in real time, muster the courage to do what you just did. Well, I appreciate that. And she said, wow, with a couple of pump fists. So thank you. Again, it's only Jesus. It's been a long time since I wanted to even do this. God has been pulling at my heart for a while, and I said, no better time. All right, so Dale, hello. So Dale, you're the one who gave me the mug. That's for such a time as this. So question, when you're traveling through carnality, in your alone time, did you feel God's love was with you? Man, that's a great question. No. And I'll tell you why. Because most of the time I was never alone. Hence the reason I think I was dating both male and female. Whoever I could take home, I would take home. Being alone was the worst place for me to be. That's why I was drunk. That's why. So I really wasn't alone. And in my moments of alone time, I don't think I was ever quiet in my head. I always had something going on, whether it be the TV or music or just talking on the phone or whatever. I never, my mind, the devil never let my mind, or I hate to say the devil because he's not present in everyone's life. So whatever spirit was lingering on me, I never allowed myself alone time. Now, to be honest with you, Dale, I love alone time. I love quiet. I love peace. Like I can get up in the morning and like I did this morning and just open the Bible and read and pray. And so no, but that was an excellent question. So no, I knew God always loved me because I always believed in God, but I don't think I ever felt the love because I was overwhelmed with still not really liking him. I hope that makes sense. So next question coming in. Yes. So Cindy, thank you so much again for that super sticker. And I don't know, I got a check in the mail from someone, and I appreciate your gift. And I don't remember the name. I thought I wrote it down, but I did not. So thank you so much. I tried to get in touch and leave a message. It went straight to voicemail. So for that person who sent me the $5 gift, I appreciate it. And again, guys, everything is in today's economy, it doesn't matter. Whatever you give, it's such a blessing, absolutely a blessing. And I always pray that God would bless you guys. So Cindy, may the Lord bless you. So Sylvia, question, where is Tim's heart now? Specifically, I have no idea. And I hate to say that. I don't care. I know that sounds rude. Should I say that? I don't know if I should say that. I don't know. Once I left that church, I left everything behind, but great question. I hope he's walking with the Lord, And again, I know that sounded hateful. I don't hate him. I forgive. And when I don't forget, it's because at 16, it's a memory that you'll never forget. So, hello, Sister Damn. Idaho is in the house. I have nothing. Oh my gosh, I can't read these comments about myself, Sandra. You need to come on and read them. I have nothing but admiration for being totally real and showing your heart. I can say I identify with some of your clips. I have a chapter 3 that is now closed. I love you, Kim. I love you too, sister. Thank you so much. It's only Jesus. I'm telling you. That's what it is. Okay, so coming in from Tanya. Does your mom? No. One time I had to force her to watch an RLE. No, does not interest her. And let me just say this about my mom. Again, I do love her. I know I'm like picking on my mom. I do love my mom. But she was also never an encourager growing up. So whether it be singing competitions or whatever, don't get me wrong. She would pay for the voice lessons. She would give me piano lessons. So she would cultivate the talent, but she would never encourage. So, you'd like hit that high note and she'd be like, I'm pausing. That would be her face. Like zero reaction. So and I tend to go overboard. Like if someone like with Jada, and I didn't like purposely cry. I cried. I was like, oh my gosh, girl, look at my niece. You're so pretty. So I tend to go a little overboard when someone is honing into their craft, and really Jada is amazing. And so I'm going to be like overly like, oh my gosh, you're so wonderful. You're so great, so. But no, my mom doesn't watch the show. None of my family watches the podcast. So hopefully they'll watch it when we're all raptured. They'll be like, let's go to this LifeClips. Okay, go ahead. So Francis says, powerful testimony with genuine, humble honesty. Thank you for sharing. Well, you're welcome. And I hope that you guys share this and get the word out. Amen, Kim. Stand strong against the enemy using the whole armor full time. Absolutely. I have a little picture. Y'all know I'm afraid of the dark, so my apartment's like really dark right now, and I want to get up and turn on some lights, but I don't know. I probably should, right? Because I keep hearing noises. So don't worry, the boogeyman won't get me. So yes, the full armor, but I have a picture of the armor on my refrigerator. Love it. Got it. You need that armor, because there's some days where I'm like, oh, forgot that helmet today. That thought just went right in my head. All right. So Allison, did your mom get mad at God when your dad died? I don't know. Someone had asked me that today. We were talking about the death of my dad, and I really don't remember. Maybe in her room. My mom, German women are different. So if there's any German women in the chat, I'm sure you can attest to that. German women are just made differently, I think. They're very independent, strong. They're opinionated. They just have a different DNA, and so I don't know. I know her story is when she moved us to Florida, she waited a whole year, because wisdom is like after you lose a death of a mate, don't make any big decisions, wait a whole year. So that was the counsel that she got from the church. And then when we moved to Florida, my mom did say that she could have went to the bars and, found encouragement there. So I do think she rested in God. I don't know what that looks like, though. I know at that point, that's when, the falsehoods, the Benny Hinn and stuff like that. So I don't know what my mom was doing. I know that she planted a lot of word of faith seeds in the ground. So at that point, I think my mom, I don't know. It's a great question. I have no idea. I don't think she was mad. I don't know how my mom processed that. I've never really asked her. She tells me, again, that, my mom is, plugged away, started working, got her own business and things of that nature. So great question, though, Allison. So next one coming in from Kathy. How does a person that suffered extreme abuse from those that should love you, protect you, learn about real love and trust? I am saved. I've never really experienced them and don't even. Great question, Kathy. To finish my question, when you've never experienced truly being loved and being able to trust someone, it's hard for me to understand God's love and that I can trust him. I have to say that I am right there with you. Baby steps, and I'm tripping over my words because your question really hits home with me. When you are violated by someone, whether it be a mom, a dad, a sibling, a teacher, a pastor's son, someone that you look up to, because we're human, right? We have a tendency to not understand that these people are human as well. And I put a lot of stock in man growing up. I would care what man did and said, and my eyes were always focused on men. I mean men in general, right? Male, female, on human beings. And when your trust is broken, the hardest thing to do, Kathy, is to trust the unseen. Because God is unseen, right? We don't hear him audibly. He's not like speaking to me saying, Kim, thouest, go here nowest, right? So to trust, even when someone is physically in front of you, when you've been betrayed and hurt, is really difficult. For me currently, it's very difficult. If we all know that I'm on a dating app, or I'm really not on it that much anymore, but so for me to even trust these people, I'm like background checking these people. So my trust is not very high. Like I always feel people have hidden motives, hidden intentions with me, that they're nice just because, right? So my trust in humans, it's not very high. So when I look at my relationship, Kathy, with, I hope you're still here, I don't know, with Jesus, it's the unseen realm. And it's even harder to trust because not only I can't hear him, right? There's times like I have cried out to the Lord, like cried out tears, God, I've been walking faithfully 11 years. I'm single. I don't have to be single. I can do what all the other Christians do. I mean, because guys, I could be in a relationship, if you guys understand what I mean, adult, still call myself a Christian, still do what a lot of Christians are doing. My camera's blurry. Sorry, guys. And then, but I have to trust him, and I learn to stay plugged into the word. So every day I'm marinating in the Bible, not every day. That's kind of a lie. I would say most of the time I do, but every day, Kathy, I pray. And who I am sitting here is the same way that I have a conversation. I was going to say conversate because, we used to do that in the inner city. We would conversate. So I have conversations. I know that's not a word. It's converse. So I would have conversations with the Lord. And that's my advice to you, Kathy, is talk to him even in the hardest moments, honestly, because God already knows us, right? He already knows my thoughts. He already knows if I have a lustful thought or whatever is going on. God already knows. So he already knows that you have a trust issue, right? You have a hard time. So tell him that. And sooner or later, it's going to get easier and easier and easier, because the main relationship, I want everyone to catch this who's still here. Thank you guys for staying this long. The main thing we have to always keep in balance is our relationship with Christ. We don't even have to worry about our earthly relationships. I'm being serious. Husbands, wives, kids. That is nothing. Because without that firm relationship in Christ, all that other stuff means nothing. So I don't know if that helped, Kathy, but that's what I would do, is learning to trust in the unseen Christ is hard for me to do even to this day, because we're trusting in something we can't see. So that's where our faith truly comes in, because now we have to be grounded and rooted in that. Did that make sense? I don't know. Sandra, thumbs up, thumbs down? No? Okay. That's a great question, though. Appreciate that. And I appreciate your honesty, Kathy. So this is coming in from Steel Magnolia. Did you have a closer emotional connection to the women you dated as opposed to men? Absolutely. 100%. Yes. So please do not think less of me when I say this. Men were, and I really have to make sure I'm not that way today. I don't think I would be. But men I can just toss to the side. Like, I was never the one when I would be promiscuous. That's why one night stands never bothered me. Sex was not very personal to me, if I could be honest. I think because of maybe being influenced with sexual things at a young age, what happened when I was, molested by Tim at 16, especially in that case, men to me were just trash. I would use them before they would use me. I would be the one to walk away. I would do the hurting. Does that make sense? Like, no man would ever hurt me. I was hurt by 2 relationships, and that was Bernardo and Jared. Other than that, there was not, even my ex-husband, there is not one person who would hurt the heart. Like, it just never happened. I didn't, if I had to break up, I was like, peace out, and I'd just go. So yes, women offered the balance that I needed, because we had that relationship of, we can talk and laugh and go shop at the mall and do girly things, because I never liked non-girly girls, if that says anything. But anyway, so yes, and that played a lot into my behavior. All right, so next question coming in from Sylvia, and I try to really tread lightly, because I don't know if I don't want to offend anyone here either. My apologies, that last question was meant to be asked about Eric. It's getting late for this old gal. He was the one who... Oh, so you mean, did Eric... Is he walking with the Lord? No. So I guess I can say this. So when we divorced in 2008, I came to the Lord in 2011. And right before I moved out of Florida, I wrote him a pretty extensive long email apologizing for not being a godly wife, apologizing for not knowing how to love. So I really put myself and my heart in that letter. But more so than all of that, I apologized to Eric by not showing him the real Jesus. Eric does not know me, if I could be honest, right? Who I am today, this was not the one that Eric married. Eric married a foul-mouthed drunk who was just angry all the time. So that is my biggest regret with him. So anyway, he responded back, F you and your mama, and maybe one day I'll find that real Jesus. And that was it. And I've never heard from him at all. I do know that my stepson, Austin, he just actually celebrated his 21st birthday, July 2nd, and I was not allowed to go to his first dance. I was not permitted because Eric did not want me there to see his graduation. So I don't believe that Eric really ever came to salvation. I can hope and pray that somebody might share this with him. I've always prayed because now since I'm back here, I know him and his wife, they come up here to jet ski and go out on the water on the Dunedin Causeway. And I just always pray, Lord, let me run into him, not for that reason, but just so he can see me and I can maybe witness to him. So no, unfortunately, he's not walking with the Lord. So Val, I have a daughter that was strong, that was so strong in the faith as an early teen, but is now married to a woman. Your testimony makes me hot. Makes me. Did you mean hot? She'll come back like you did. Again, Val, it's like everyone's life clip. I know your name is unisex, so I don't know if you're a sister, so I'm just going to say sis. But I believe that once saved, always saved. But the question is, did Jesus ever know them? Because remember, Jesus says, I never knew you. And I do believe that if I were to have passed away during those carnal years, I would be in heaven. And I always say the story about the rapture. Remember Sandra with the dogs and their food and water bowl? So I would always say that I always knew deep down in my spirit, right? The spirit man knew. The flesh man was like, nah, forget that spirit man. But so I used to keep these buckets out for my dogs, like they're 5-gallon buckets of food and water. So there was 4. So they always thought that I fed my dogs separately. My friends would come over and be like, no, it's when the rapture, and this is what happened. When the rapture happens, they'll at least have some food and water. But no one ever questioned, well, won't you be here to feed them and give them water? And I never put myself in the situation if they were raptured, if the rapture happened, that I would be there. Because I would say, I wouldn't have never said that. Because in my mind, my spirit man knew, well, you ain't going to be here to be feeding your dogs, So I don't know. So the question is was the person truly ever saved to begin with? And I love how Dennis Roxker, and he's going to come back on in August, I love how he always said that we want to put a time frame on carnality. So, they can't be a Christian. What if is it a day? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? Is it 10 years? So when is that time limit? Like, if you went past 5 years of living in sin, you're certainly not a Christian. That's not scriptural. That's not biblical. So I will pray, Val, for your daughter. If you can, please send me an email with her name, and I would love to pray over her daily. Just give me her name. You don't have to do it in the chat. I don't want to be that personal. And I will lift her up. So questions at LifeClipspodcast.com, and I will lift your daughter up in prayer. Absolutely. I believe God can change anyone. And even if she's not saved, Val, just hear me on this, sis. Even if she is not saved, I believe that God can break every chain. See, that song is in my head. God can make a way for your daughter to come to the saving knowledge of Christ. Absolutely. All right. Oh, my sweet Carly is next. I hope that answered your question, Val. So Carly says, my dear sister Kim, I can relate so much of your testimony. You're so real, brutally honest, and your heart for God is an inspiration. Thank you. You're beautiful inside and out, and I can't wait to hug you in heaven. I cannot wait to hug you too, sis. I love you. I'm going to keep talking so I don't get emotional. Okay, Brooklyn, I love that name. Lou the Skeptic. Okay, so when people say they are saved and going to heaven, they mean they think this in the case, right? Does anyone really know such things? Well, Lou the Skeptic, yes. I don't think, I absolutely unequivocally know that I am going to heaven. The question I would always ask somebody is, if you were to die 13 seconds from now, what do you honestly think would happen? So I can honestly say that if I were to die 13 seconds from now, that when I draw this breath right now on earth, that I would be present with my Savior in heaven. The Bible is extremely real, but let's just take the Bible out of it just for 1 second. Jesus has been proven to be real. Absolutely. Even historically. So if that is the case, sometimes we put our faith in inanimate objects. We put our faith in, I don't know, just other gods, so to speak, right? We'll believe in the Easter Bunny before we'll believe that Jesus came and died for all mankind. So my question to you would be, is, first of all, you're here for a reason, right? So I'm assuming that you may not know the Lord. I don't know. I'm going by the name. Christ is real. And if you're here, I don't believe in coincidence. So if you want to chat outside of this podcast, again, feel free to reach out. I will be there. And we can have a dialogue around that. Because each of us are appointed once to die. And when we die, there's no do-overs. There's no purgatory. There's no afterlife. There's no reincarnation. Once we draw our last breath, whatever choices we made, we will face that. And then when you draw your last breath, if you don't know Christ, at that moment, you're going to know unequivocally that there is a God. So I, yes, 100% know that if I were to draw my last breath 13 seconds from now, without a shadow of a doubt, I will be sitting in heaven enjoying the presence of my Savior. And final question is coming in from Good Breakfast. Kim, do you have a home church? As a man speaking here, we are slower sometimes. So I do, but they're online. So my two pastors are Matthew Mayer and Kurt Reed. I tried faithfully to listen to them. I don't always get to them live on Sunday. I really try very hard to do that. Now, since I'm unplugging for the next 2 weeks, I definitely will be tuning in. But so that is my home church. So I know they're far away, but that's where I go. So I guess, is that everyone? I guess, Sandra, right? Yeah, I think we're good. So if anyone does not have, oh, there's another one. What is, oh, I can't see that on my screen. So I can't, is that Lynn? Is that the name Lynn? Okay, so Lynn, how do you deal, that's weird that I don't see it. How do you deal with the sensation of past regrets? Okay, so if you were to ask that question before I heard Matthew's message, I probably would say I tend to live in regret at times, not all the time. I live in regret big time. I was, being single. I would always say, oh, I would have been a pastor's wife and leading praise and worship and all this other stuff. So with that being said, I did live in regret for poor choices and for being carnal for so many years that where could have I been today, right? Where would I have been today if I didn't do all of that? Would I be married with 7,000 kids, I don't know. And since God is a dot connector, it's not like everything I did caught him off guard. He already knew that I would be sitting here July 7th, 2023 at 9:48 p.m. giving a LifeClip. But so when I heard Matthew's message today, it was just kind of like this solidifying the fact that God has never seen me what I've always seen in myself. And that person that I saw in myself was this just mean and ugly person. But it's still hard for me, to not hone in on those past regrets. But I know that God has used everything that I did, and he's using it for his glory today. My advice to somebody is let go of those past regrets. Let go of what you've done in the past, because that's why they call it the past. It just sits there. We don't need to bury it back up, because God certainly never will. Even when I stand before him, I will never, as a believer, be judged for sins that I've committed since I've been saved. I'll never be judged upon that. I'll be judged upon my works for the kingdom, but never for my sin. Okay, so Okie girl, please be safe. I just looked up and I seen that about the lightning. I don't know if you're gone or not. So let's see. Now, I don't know. I know I've had requests to do so. Sandra, I don't know. I was thinking of singing a song. It's a country song, but I don't know if that would work now because of all the sound issues. But if somebody wants to hear a song, I do have one that I can do here tonight. If not, it's no big deal. Again, it is country. So just let me know. Goodbye, Heather. You have a great night. Sis, be careful out there on the road. If you want that, I guess I can just be a performer. If not, it is no big deal. We can do it on another time. Oh, no, Sandra. Of course you had to say. Okay. So, do you want me to... I keep like hearing these noises and I know it's nothing. It's like my refrigerator, my AC is just getting so dark and I have like no lights. So thumbs up on the song. So I guess, so should I, Sandra? Do you want to, we'll test it out with the music and I'm not going to sing right away. We'll just test out the sound. Yeah? Okay. So let's do this. Let's see. Again, this is country. It's not a Christian song. So I'm going to play the music. And hopefully YouTube may kind of do something funky because it might come under a copyright, but I don't know. So now since we got that adjusted, Sandra, how does that music sound compared to my voice? You can hear it? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeehaw, yeehaw, yeehaw. It sounds okay. I'm not too loud, though? I feel like I'm really loud. No? Sounding good? Are you sure? Gotta give me a thumbs up, girl. Yes, no? Dun, 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 dun. What are you thinking? Yeah? Can you hear me? Oh, there's your thumbs. I'm not seeing the thumbs up. Okay, so it's good? Okay. All right, so I guess we'll do this. Here we go, guys. I packed a cooler and a change of clothes. Let's jump and see how far it goes. Gotta keep seeing them thumbs up, girl. You got my heart in your daddy's boat. We've got all night to make it float. We could sit on the shore. We could just be friends. We could jump in. The whole world could change in a minute. Just one kiss could stop it spinning. We could think it through. But I don't want to. If you don't want to, we could keep things just the same. Leave here the way we came with nothing to lose. But I don't want to, if you don't want to. And I got your ring around my neck and a couple of nights I don't regret. You've got a dream of a degree and a shirt that smells like me. Yeah, we both got dreams we could chase alone, or we could make our own. This whole world could change in a minute. Just one kiss could stop it spinning. We could think it through. But I don't want to. If you don't want to, we could keep things just the same. Leave here the way we came with nothing to lose. But I don't want to. If you don't want to, never waste another day wondering what you threw away. Holding me, holding you. I don't want to. If you don't want to. keep things just the same. Leave here the way we came with nothing to lose. But I don't want to if you don't want to. But I want to. I want you. Okay. There we go. And I got my ears, so I couldn't really even hear either. So there we go. Never ask again. There we go. So on a side note, for all those who say, I'm going to bring you on, Sandra. Is that cool? So for all of those who say that I want to be famous and I'm doing this podcast for money, that is what I would have been doing since I started this camera. So thank you, Sandra, for being here. Thank you guys so much for letting me bare my heart. I really hope that was okay. It's just different when you're... All right, so I don't know what YouTube's going to do. They might ban it.
You sure have a strong voice.
And I'm curtailing it here at the house, remember, because I'm in an apartment. But as Sandra knows, I used to do opera, guys. So I was, that's what I sang a lot in church, like Sandy Patty and all that other stuff. So I have that kind of, I feel pretty, all that. So I was very quiet. Oh gosh, I love you.
I want to hear it loud. You'll have to show me sometime.
We'll do it not here in the apartment. Let's just put it that way. You can actually hear me sing, girl. But anyway, guys, I love you. I love you, family. Sandra, thank you for everything that you do. Since you're right in front of me now, I can just praise you for a little bit. Sandra, here she is, guys, in a camp retreat, doing her thing out there. But plus, stay-at-home mom with 4 kids. She always takes time out, and I'm just so grateful and so thankful that God has put you in my life. I know I'm your chatty Cathy friend, but girl, you have just seriously, even through all that with that podcast group, you were my backbone, girl. I don't know what I would have done without you. And Carly, I mean, you guys are just amazing. So
anytime, and all for his glory, as I always say.
Absolutely. Well, guys, this was fun. I kind of enjoyed it. It was a little rough talking about my dad and Tim. But other than that, I think, guys, just share this, not for my purposes, but for anybody. Actually, in Christ alone, make sure we give all our mods here some love. That would be great. You guys are awesome. But that way people understand, even us Christians, we struggle. And again, if you want to come on here, Sandra and I will do a little interview, video chat. Would love to have some more life clips coming on for sure. But that is it. I cannot believe you guys stayed with me for like 3 hours. Yeah. That's insane. Is Tyler, I guess Brother Tyler's not on tonight? He's not talking?
He was on earlier. I don't know if he's still there.
And I still have people here? All right. I'm coming up in the world. I don't know. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed a little country song there. It's my favorite song. It's by Sugarland. And, anyway, guys, I love you. Sandra, I love you. Are you going to hang tight, or you got camping stuff to do?
Yeah, I can hang tight for a few minutes.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys. So anyway, y'all have an amazing evening. I guess you'll send us out then, Sandra, with the video. I'll hit the little end broadcast.
Sure, yeah.
And you can load up that video. Bye, guys, have a great night. Bye.
Have a good night. God bless.
Thank you for listening to this week's podcast. If you enjoyed the content, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, head on over to our website, LifeClipspodcast.com, to find out more information. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, send us an email at questions@lifeclipspodcast.com. And as I always end it, I will see you here, there, or in the air.
Titus chapter 2, verse 13. Looking for the blessed hope, and the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior,